This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Welcome to the BMW Driving Experience 120 at Road Atlanta. This afternoon, drivers will be competing in teams of 2 for a shot at the win. The prize, though, 2 tickets to go to a Level 1 BMW M-Race Track GT training session with the beautiful BMW M4 GT4 car. We will also be having a guest team racing comprising of 2 BMW factory drivers, Nicky Katzberg and Jesse Krohn. Road Atlanta will be, of course, our stage here for this afternoon's race, of course, based in Braselton, USA. There's the track information up on screen for you now. 4 kilometer in length. We've got 26 degrees in the air, 38 degrees on the track temperature, mostly cloudy conditions with 44% relative humidity. The winds are basically non-existent. I'm Connery Maddock, and bringing you through the broadcast here today will be myself, it will be Paul Smith, it will be Jack Stiles as well. Drivers to start and get now qualifying underway here. Paul, what a day for racing.
Absolutely, what a fantastic venue this is as well for for this brilliant event here as we go racing around Road Atlanta, one of the most challenging circuits that there is out there in North America, and of course it's going to be the host of Petit Le Mans in just a few weeks' time as well.
Yes, it will, and that's always a fantastic event to witness as well. You can see on the live pictures, there's the BMW Works team there. Nicky Katzberg currently behind the wheel, trying to get that number 15 BMW qualified here in this event. And Jack, it's fantastic to see these factory drivers, these professional drivers in real life, still giving a go here on the sim racing side of things. Some of them are very, very competent at the sim racing side of things as well, which isn't entirely surprising considering they do this for their job. But, it's good to see these guys mix it in with the sim racing guys.
Of course, not the first time we've seen Nicky Katzberg on one of our broadcasts back in February for the Bathurst 12 Hours. He ran with Team Redline, but here with his, of course, BMW factory driver in Nicky, his co-driver Jesse Krohn, one of the IMSA drivers that runs out in America with that M8 GTE. And of course, that program has just come to an end in the World Endurance Championship, but carrying on in IMSA, as we see Nicky Katzberg hit himself through that final corner across the line. This is to start his second qualifying lap. He's going to qualify himself second at the moment with 5 minutes still left to run here in quali. But for Nicky Katzberg, a good first lap. Now he's got to really cement that position on the grid with his second one.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see him getting himself into that first sector, down the hill. The elevation change quite prevalent here at Road Atlanta. You get into the compression through the S's there, and then you head your way up towards that sometimes very treacherous turn 5. It's caught out so many drivers in iRacing past, and well, it might just catch out a few when it comes to the race here today. Katzberg coming up towards turn 6 now, turn 7. Make sure you get a good exit out of here because it is a very long run on 100% throttle all the way out of turn 7 and then to the turn 10A, turn 10B chicane. We have Logitech G Altus Esports getting themselves provisional pole position by a good margin. Now that's 3.5 tenths of a second that Altus have been able to manage here, Paul. Can Katzberg reply to that? He currently sits in P6.
Well, he's certainly given a good go, that's for sure, as they go through the final chicane here, up over the top of the hill, now plunge down this steep downhill section through the flat out final corner across the line. Does he improve? And the answer is no, he does not. So stays dropping down to 8th place now at the moment in qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, Relay Sim Racing, they've gotten themselves up into P4 on the starting grid here today. They still have another flying lap to do. So under the Suzuki Bridge they go here for the final sector at Road Atlanta. Get that nose in for the final corner and across the line. And will it be an improvement for Relay? Nope, that is going to be about a tenth of a second slower than what they were able to do on their first lap. Hellenic Racing getting themselves up into P number 5, though. We're still waiting for Williams Esports in the number 5 BMW. Andre Borcher behind the wheel of that one. He's going to get himself out of the final corner, sets a lap time, one of the fastest teams here today, and certainly making a big statement because he gets himself all the way up into P2, Derek.
Yeah, good qualifying lap from Andre Borcher, not quite getting to Lassie Sorensen in the Logitech GL2C Sports BMW car, currently sitting on pole by 2.5 tenths. Of course, not just Nicky Katzberg and Jesse Krohn, the two real-world racing drivers racing this event today, as Dennis Gabrowski puts the Pure Team Racing yellow machine onto second onto grid. And that is going to be, of course, Lassie Sorensen in that pole-sitting car currently as we ride on board with Mac Backham heading through the S's. He's the 2014 French F4 champion, the brother to as Maximilian Benecke actually goes pole position. Just as I was talking to him about Lassie Sorensen, he's lost that pole position. Max Benecke, a really good time there. Connery going just a tenth quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. Mac, though, looking to put that VRS Quantum Sim Sports number 8 car on pole position here, coming down the back straight. And, well, he has another lap to do after this one if he so chooses, and he will have time to be able to go for another lap here if required. But Backham then down the hill into the big braking zone of that turn 10A, turn 10B chicane, clips both apexes perfectly. Track out over the curb, under the bridge, and now down into the final corner. Is it going to be pole position here for Coanda across the line? A 1:15.681. It's not good enough for even the front row. Sets them in P3 here for the start of the race, Paul.
Yeah, that was a bit of an untidy end to the lap there, but it certainly worked for them as they came across the line onto that second row, as you mentioned. So it's not that bad. It's not all bad news, really, for them. And they got that. Now, Pashelis Jurgis is another man who's really got to try and get a lap time in here to improve, because they're currently in 9th place, not where they want to be, across the line with 49 seconds remaining, and they do improve their lap time, but it's only one position up into 8th place. It's a little bit of a nightmare there for Coanda Sim Sport, not up on the front row.
It is a little bit of a nightmare. There's that Bro Sim Racing car at number 17 having a little bit of a spin towards the end of the session, and I think that is going to be the qualifying grid set. I don't think anyone else can get themselves a lap time in at this stage with only 20 seconds left remaining in the session. So that is going to be the grid all set here for the 2-hour event. Here's what it looks like. Front row, Pure Racing Team Red, pole position for Maximilian Benecke. He had a little bit of heartbreak in the World Championship Series race yesterday, but starting off strong here in the BMW 120. Lasse Sorensen for Logitech GL2C Sports there in the P2, with VRS Quantum Sim Sports number 8 car in P3, with Pure Racing Team Yellow in P4 here for today's race. Williams Esports will start themselves in 5th place with Team 63, Josh Thompson behind the wheel in 6th place. AAA Esports will start 7th with VRS Coanda number 81 starting in 8th. Evolution Racing Team will start in 9th with Relay Sim Racing in P10. And you look back, Hellenic Racing Red. Well, it's an all Hellenic Racing 6th row of the grid here today as they get their 88 and the 31 cars up into P11 and 12 on the grid respectively. Simsa ISR powered by Simplex Racing starts in P13 with BMW Team Crowcat there. That's the Nicky Katzberg and Jesse Krohn piloted car. They start in P14 here today with Impulse Racing Masters in P15. Team Walking Dead GTE will start 16th with BBB Stream Endurance Gold in P17. Sim Racing Tools Red in P18 with Schubert Motorsports VVLN starting in the 19th spot. Rebellion Racing iRacing Team White in P20. Pro Race Drivers P21. Wild Animal Russia Ushanka will start in P22 with Racing Sim Tools Green P23. Quasar Sim Racing starts in P24 here at Road Atlanta, with Hexa Racing Team Purple Team P25 on the grid, with P26 going to BP Racing Red. I'll enunciate that, I'm sure, as Drapelage Sim Racing Esports there in P27, with Laps, just the team called Laps, in P28. Legacy Drive Readers Club P29, with Ultimate Strong Bonkers in P30. We've got that Ito Ducey Racing car in P31. You guys are making this difficult for me, as Autosport Orange starts in P32, with P33 going to Bro Sim Racing 666, with HM in P34, with Gold Team Racing, sponsored by Thrustmaster, rounding out your 35 car grid here today. That was one of the more difficult grid rundowns I've ever had to do, Paul.
I'll tell you what, you did a good job of it, and you do a better job of it than I do, that's for sure. But yeah, it's a nice big grid here for this event. It's a tricky track. One of the key points that we're going to find around this track as well is going to be turn number 5, because that corner always catches people out. Remember, in last year's Petit Le Mans, we had 3 different changes of leader in the first 5 hours, purely because of the way that people were losing control at turn number 5. So hopefully we don't see that too much, but we could see drama at that corner.
We could see it, and well, the leaders are coming through it right now. You can see that fantastic shot there, provided to us by our director, of course, Hugo Louis, behind the scenes here. Similarly so with, of course, Paul Smith, also on the commentary, also on the replays here today as well. So absolutely fantastic effort all round as these guys head their way through the middle sector. You can see all of these BMW M8 GTE machines work their way through that middle sector, just getting themselves prepared for the start of the race here, Jack. It's important to calm those nerves.
Yeah, obviously a long race here today, 2 hours. It's surprising how quickly that will go for these drivers, and of course it is a team event. They will have to change the drivers at that pit stop, but that pit stop is going to be crucial. The track temperature today here is high. It's climbed just a little bit since we started qualifying, and that is going to mean that whether you double stint or single stint a set of tyres could be the difference between you winning or losing this race today. Getting a short pit stop as well is going to be interesting. It's going to be about 30 seconds you lose changing tyres, so whether you'd lose 30 seconds over the course of a stint by running a double stinted set of tyres as opposed to getting a new set, it's going to be interesting to see. That track temperature really isn't going to help. It might drop as we go later on into the race, but I don't think it's going to have enough of a factor.
We will just have to wait and see. Into the final chicane they go here on this formation lap. Under the Suzuki bridge now, as that pace car down on towards the lane. It's an early go there for Maximilian Benecke, Pure Racing Team Red. We are green here for the BMW Driving Experience 120 at Road Atlanta. Big challenge for the race lead already as Altus Esports tried to file their way through. They've taken a big wide line coming in towards turn 1, but have to settle for second place on the way up towards turn number 3. A little bit of a stack up as you get towards the start of the S's section for the first time here in this 2-hour event. You can see all these BMWs just snaking their way through. A little brief side by side there in the mid pack, but everyone instantly single file. There's no other way through there.
It certainly isn't. They've got to get themselves into position and get themselves working together, as we've got battling further down a little bit, and it's one of the Hellenic cars trying to get involved there, the 11th place Hellenic Racing, and well, getting a bit excited behind the relay sim racing car, but keep it going. And the BMW Team Pro Cat are starting to work their way through this field here, trying to gain positions as they go along this race.
Yeah, absolutely, and heading down in towards that chicane for the first time on board with Katzberg, as he had a little bit of a look there, a little bit of a sense of going down the inside of the Simsa ISR car, but not going to go for that early opportunity this time around. It is still, of course, 2 hours in this race, but there's a big side-by-side moment there. That is going to be for P6 out there on circuit. Williams Esports trying to defend from that AAA Esports car. Thibaut Casabon behind the wheel of the number 2 right now. That's putting on the aggression. but it's not going to really be fruitful of anything this time around here, Jack, especially coming in towards the S's section, where if you're not alongside already, it's so difficult to try and make any inroads. As AAA Esports, they get very wide, very sketchy coming through turn 5, and well, it hasn't claimed any victims just yet, but with drivers doing that, it's only a matter of time.
I'm not sure you can ever get through a race here without having a victim up at turn 5. It's a corner which drivers always seem to struggle with. Even the best have had an accident there at some point. Thibaut Casabon really pushing that BMW M8 GTE to the limit, but he's dropped a little bit further behind Andre Borcher now. He's just got to regroup, get himself back together and try again. Still a long way to go in this race, but Andre Borcher now looking down to the inside of the Team 63 car of Josh Thompson, and easily going to get it done on the brakes. No competition there from Mr. Thompson, and through Andre Borcher will go, and now Thibaut Casabon piling on the pressure onto that Team 63 car. Lovely carbon finish to that BMW.
Yeah, it is an awesome livery. We're on lap number 3 of this event already. AAA Esports still trying to find a line through. Up and towards turn 3, they decide to go then onto the brakes into there. It's such a tricky corner because you don't really see the inside apex of the car of the corner until the very last minute. So you basically have to aim and pray that you'll be able to hit it in any sort of consistent fashion. But it's been a very clean start here today, Paul. No one having any really big dramas. We've had no retirements. We've had no one like completely off the pace here. So we've had a very good start.
Yeah, it's not been a bad start at all. The pro race drivers did have an incident down at the chicane, but they're back up and running now, so they were a bit further down in your order, and they're now down in last place. Last year runners, 35 cars out there on track, but I'll tell you what, this AAA Esports car really putting the pressure on Josh Thompson in front of him at the moment, under braking though for the chicane. No real moves being made at the moment, but we've got plenty of action all the way through this field. But look at how close they're getting between the two of these as they come down the hill once again and through across the line. Really quick laps here as well, don't forget, as looking to the inside. Casabon, will he make the move? It's not really traditional overtaking spot there, so he has to stay behind for the time being, but he's signalling his intentions here, Connery.
Yeah, definitely firing off a little bit of a warning shot there as far as that battle is concerned. We can see Nicky Katzberg, he's actually dropped back there into P20. It was side by side through turn 1, and that's the BMW Works team having a little bit of a trip through the grass there. That was helped by, I believe it was the Simsa car that punted them coming in towards turn 1. That is not really the start that the BMW Works team would have wanted, but at least they're still on the circuit, still with a healthy car and not in tire barrier there, Jack.
I think we may have lost Jack. But yeah, it's not the start at all that they would have been looking for. And so, still, boy, battle here, Connery. They're still getting pretty close, and Pure Racing team are having to go. They've actually made it past here, haven't they? No, they were holding on to the position, should I say. Sorry, looking at the wrong timing screen. But Logitech GL to C Sports, they're really piling the pressure on here. Leslie Sorensen.
Lots of pressure. It's how Beneke deals with it, but he's been in these sorts of situations before. It's certainly not foreign territory for him by any means. Through that SS section once again, Sorensen needs the good run out of maybe turn 5 to be able to do anything into turn 6, or just have to wait and bide his time. You can see how close he gets up and towards the entry to turn 5. Beneke has to push wide in the PRT red car. The run does go to the Altus Esports machine down the inside. He does send it inside of turn 6. Sorensen to the race lead. That was a well-worked pass there. Is he able to secure it? It looked pretty secure out of turn 7. That was brilliant there, Paul.
Fantastic effort, and that is one of the places where you can make those moves down into turn 6 and 7. You usually compromise yourself on the exit of turn 7 though for top speed, but Beneke in that slipstream, gaining now on your race leader, looking to the inside of the chicane. So easy to lock up a front wheel there into that chicane, but these drivers, they are top drivers here. So Sorensen to the front of the field, but there's still a long way to go in this one yet, because these drivers, they're giving it absolutely everything.
Yeah, well, 2 hours to go. They're driving like it's 2 minutes to go. Beneke looking for a wide line coming through the first turn. Tries to carry a bit more mid-corner speed. looking for any further progress towards that turn 3 sector as well. Beneke keeping himself very, very close, basically riding the back bumper of the number 43 car, your race leader. And now up through turn 5, it was a mistake from Beneke coming through this corner, which surrendered the race lead just 1 lap ago. He seems relatively stable this time, but in no position to try and get the repass here over that Logitech G Altus Esports car, as we do have, of course, still a train behind these guys. You have Coanda Sim Sports number 8, you have Pure Racing Team Yellow, you have Williams Esports not too far off either as the head of the second train, I would say here, Paul. So it's it's still not just a case of a 2-horse race at the front. Everyone else is involved here. Yeah, it's there's about a second and a half covering the first 4 there. There's a little gap back to Williams Esports, but they're not that far away. AAA are putting the pressure on them after making their move past Josh Thompson at Team 63 car. So there's still plenty of drivers in and around together with each other as looking into turn number 1. With the leaders, as we'll look at this queue of cars going through, but yeah, the leaders. Beneke, he wants that position back. In fact, we're going to look back actually. The BMW team, the official BMW team, is it? It's the Racing Sim Tools Red. They've lost a position then to BMW team Crocat for the time being. So they down to 18th, and that official BMW team up to 17th now. Yeah, so the recovery drive in full swing for Nicky Katzberg at this moment in time. It's not much of a recovery drive though, but when you have just a slight instant coming through the first couple of laps of the race here where everyone is still stacked together, it is so easy to lose a ton of positions with not that much lost time. So that's the situation that he has been dealt. That's the card the team has to deal with now, and try and manage it throughout the 2 hours that we have remaining. Back towards the race lead though, because here comes Beneke. He couldn't find a line though down in towards the chicane. Sorensen parked the car in the middle of the circuit. Beneke has a very good run out of the slow speed section outside for the final corner. Try and get the run off. They're so close coming across the start finish line. Defensive from Sorensen in towards turn 1. Beneke again forced to have a look to the outside, and well, he can't find his way through here. It's just Sorensen putting up a mega defensive effort here, Jack.
Yeah, Maximilian Beneke, he kept looking, but the outside line, especially through turn 1, and that last corner is never going to work. Coming through the S's, they've got to go line astern, so he's going to tuck right in. Very wide line for Lasse Sorensen, really wide. He's going to lose some time, going to give him a 1x. He's going to give the advantage back to Maximilian Beneke, but Beneke is going to have to go around the outside if he's going to have to get it done. There's not going to be enough room, so Lasse Sorensen going to hold on to this one for just a moment more. But into this equation comes Mac Backham and the driver of Dennis Kabrowski. So there's 2 Pure Racing Team cars in this one. Dennis could try and help his teammate of Maximilian, but to do that, he needs to get himself past Mac Backham.
Here comes Beneke, slipstream down in towards that turn 10, the braking zone. Down the hill they go. Beneke, he pulls out, but he almost tags Sorensen there down into the braking zone. That was a very late decision there from Beneke, and well, he was able to get away with it, but that was a bit too close to call for me, Paul.
Yeah, it was a little bit close, let's just say that. But Beneke going on the aggression now, really moving about, trying to get past Sorensen. I thought they got close down the back straight away there. I almost thought he was bump drafting him into this blind crest here where you struggle to see the apex of the corner when you're braking. Now plunge downhill through 4. In towards turn number 5, on the brakes, on the curb, the car gets unsettled. You've got to use these curbs here. You can see how bumpy it is as well. But these drivers, what they're doing is, with the battling that they're doing, they're slowing each other down, and it's keeping Backham in the VRS Quanta Sim Sport car. It's keeping the Pure Racing Team yellow car close to them, and it's also giving the Williams eSport and AAA cars the opportunity to be on the tail of these as well.
Yeah, it is. So, of course, you do have, you can see the weaving. Beneke, what's he doing? Is he just basically taunting him at this point? That's a little questionable there. Down into the braking zone of the chicane. That one's very, very interesting, Beneke. I'm not sure what the entire purpose of that was, but maybe, Jack, you have any ideas?
not a clue. If anything, I'd say he's just shot himself in the foot a bit because he's lost time by weaving. He's going to be covering more ground. He's not going to be going as fast down the straight, which means that he's going to drop himself further back from that Logitech Ultis Esports machine. So for Maximilian Benecke, clearly trying to play mind games with Lasse Sorensen. However, Lasse Sorensen having none of it and really solidifying himself in that first position. The gap between the two now 3/10. Now you might think that's not a lot, but compared to the last few laps, that's probably about as big as this gap has been.
Yep, it is. So it's, yeah, it's certainly an interesting situation there at the front of the field. Through turn 5 they go. They can have a bit of a sort of, well, I wouldn't say abuse, but, you know, interesting interpretation of the track limits coming out of turn 5. As long as you don't hit the grass, then you should just be fine here. Of course, there is an instant limit here, 25. Across the 2 hours that we have to race here. And of course, if you're new to iRacing, well, every single off-track instant gets you a single instant point. A contact with the wall or a spin is 2 points, and a contact with another car is 4 points. And well, if you go over 25 in this particular race, you will be disqualified from the event. So it's you do have to be careful with the instant points here and there, Paul, especially this early on in the race, because if you rack them up, you're going to be concerned about them for the entire rest of the race.
Well, that's it. It's all about sort of playing that sort of, you know, how do you offset it? Do you push now, pick up, rack up a load of instant points, or do you conserve them? Don't get involved in things, and then when you get towards the end of the race, it gives you some room to play with. To be fair, I would say that right now, Benecke's really trying to put the pressure on, really trying to get in the head of Sorensen. He's maybe wanting to being able to sort of use an odd off track here and there, but really, if you go off track at this track in particular, you're on the grass and you're not going to go as fast on the grass as you would elsewhere. So definitely it's a fine balancing act that you've got to work here, and it is a 2 hour race, so 25 instant points in 2 hours is not that much really.
Yeah, not that much, as long as you can keep it on the grey stuff. That is for certain. Down into the chicane, these guys go. Still a bit of a train here for your race lead, and well, we have had a bit of separation in terms of the pack here. Of course, you have the top around about 6 or so cars still well within striking distance of your race leader, and then there's a separation back a little bit to a bit of a trio led by Bashalis Jurgis in the Coanda number 81 car. And then there's a big separation in the middle of your field where you start to see teams like Triple B Stream Endurance Gold and Hellenic Racing Red down there in the mid-pack. So a clear separation at this stage. You can see the split screen that we have here for RaceSpotTV. We're heading on board with Pure Racing Team Red, Maximilian Benecke. And, you know, it's great that we can provide this sort of coverage, multiple views, multiple angles. Of course, it's relatively easy to do in the real world, but when it comes to the sim racing side of things, where everything is online, then it starts to get a little bit more tricky, Paul.
Yes, and I'm that person who's providing the second cameras here, so it's a little bit different for me. Oh, Benecke's looking, he's got the slipstream, he's going to, no, he's holding back here. Now, is he thinking strategy here? Is he thinking, I'm getting a lot of fuel saving done right here? And with this being a relatively short lap around here as well, if you could just sit behind the leader for so long, save yourself maybe 3, maybe 4 laps worth of fuel, it might be worth sitting behind for the time. But he's really getting right up behind your leader, but he's not making those moves. Maybe he's decided, right, let's play this tactically, try and jump them in the pit stop.
Yeah, exactly. And, well, the strategy here is going to be interesting because they are sort of, well, a bit marginal when it comes to actually getting themselves the one-stop strategy going here. So maybe that's what Benecke is deciding to do. He can save as much fuel as possible behind the Ultis Esports car, just sit in that draft to just lift and coast down into these corners, and you can save a lot of fuel by doing that. And Benecke, well, we'll have to see how that works out there for that Pure Racing Team Red car. Of course, sometimes the best laid plans don't exactly go your way, but it gives you a good percentage chance of making it work there.
Yeah, and that strategy here is going to be important, especially as we say, as we get towards the pit stops. If Maximilian Benecke can maybe go a couple of laps longer, or even have that shorter pit stop than the guys around him, it could give him an advantage of 1, 2, maybe 3 seconds, and that could be everything around this circuit. As soon as you get some clean air, start just getting into consistent mind and running your own race and just really knuckling down, you really can start pulling out a gap. Road Atlanta is a really funny circuit because psychologically you're constantly thinking, you're always thinking, right, where am I going to go to try not to put it in a wall basically around here? If you can just get yourself some clean space, some clean air, sorry, everything else from around you is gone. You can just concentrate on yourself and go. And actually, you probably see the lap time start to drop at that point.
Yeah, we probably will. As you see these guys snake themselves through the S section once again. Benecke, you know, at this point, it seems to be in no hurry to get past your race leader here today. Speaking of your race leader, just went pushed a bit wide there, coming through turn 5. So Sorensen really playing with fire with the exit of turn 5 here, and well, it has been also the case for Maximilian Benecke, and he certainly knows that. That's how he lost the race lead in the first place. But again, we've still seen no one up and down the field have a huge moment coming through that particular turn 5 section. So hopefully I'm not giving the curse of the commentator to any teams out there here today, although I've just said that it's probably going to be within the next 3 laps someone's going to find the wall there, Paul.
Yeah, well done, Connery. As we've got these drivers still pretty close together at the front. Just a quick update as well. The BMW team, they've got themselves a bit of clear space now. They're in 16th place, so they've got about a second and a half in front of them. So they'll be pushing on, trying to catch up to the team Walking Dead GTE. So hopefully they'll be able to move their way through. But Nicky Katzberg is an experienced driver. I'm sure he'll be fine at just getting the head down and really pushing on.
Yeah, absolutely. As you see, there's a cone flying in the background there. Nicky Katzberg joining the Cone Murderers Club of iRacing, I suppose. Of course, we're getting the endurance chat done early here. That's what we have to say, as Katzberg currently in P16 here. After starting in P14, so he has recovered a lot of the lost grounds that he had with that instance a little bit earlier on in the race. Here's a battle though for P12 and 13. That's the Triple B Stream Racing, Triple B Stream Endurance Gold car, the Hellenic Racing Red car as well. Bill Kazantas giving chase to Daniel Pastor here. As Hellenic Racing, of course, they are pretty big in terms of the sort of the private endurance league side of the racing here, Jack. So they're definitely really in tune with how these cars work over the long runs here in these sorts of races. So they have that experience on the table compared to a team like that number 9.
As you say, yeah, Hellenic Racing, a team which everyone knows who they are. They're always one which is very interesting to watch. And Bill's Kensnastas looking to be catching that BBB Stream Endurance Gold machine. This time around the racetrack was a 10th of a second quicker. So just small gains, but small gains can mean everything, especially when the race is still an hour and 40 minutes till we see that checkered flag. And as they head themselves up into turn 3, you can really just see how blind this corner is. And you've got to be careful. If you know that there's going to be a car stopped at the top of that hill, you really have to be cautious, because you can come over the crest of the hill and all of a sudden there'll be a car directly across the track and there's nowhere to go at that point.
Yep, there is. It's such a treacherous portion of the racetrack that drivers have to be aware of. As still on board then with Hellenic Racing Red as they give chase to that Triple B Stream Endurance Racing Gold. We do have a car that's had a moment though. That's 14. That's the Wild Animal Russia Yushanka machine. This is before turn 5, so I haven't exactly given them the jinx here, but it is through the S's section. And it's a bit of a tangle here with the Quasar Sim Racing car, the number 25, and that's why, Paul, you can't go side by side in the S's.
Yeah, it's not ideal to try and do that through there, and they've given us the perfect example of why you don't do that. But yeah, the Wild Animal Russia Yushanka team, it was a little bit of a dive from the Quasars, and well, none of their complex mathematics is going to help them in that Quasar team.
Yeah, absolutely. Meanwhile, Wild Animal Yushanka, they are going side by side with Bro Sim Racing right now, down into the chicane. As that number 14 have they outbroke themselves down into there. They almost lose control of the car. Bro Sim Racing able to get the line off the corner, and it looks like the wild animals. They'll be losing 2 more here from the pack as Racing Sim Tools Green will decide to head their way through as well. So that's an easy display of just one mistake really start sort of compounding upon each other. You make that mistake and all of a sudden it's not 1 but just 2 cars heading their way through. There's a BMW without a front end that's trying to lock onto the back of this one as well. Meanwhile, back towards your race lead, Altus Esports still leading this one with Sorensen behind the wheel. Beneke, Pure Racing Team Red, still second in line. Backham, Coanda, third in line still. Not much changing in terms of this one here, Jack, but I had to wonder when maybe the match will start to light.
And just looking at the lap times this time around, pretty even, but the lap beforehand, it looks as though Maximilian Beneke was just a little bit quicker. So maybe he's trying to put the pressure on a little bit more as we head a little bit deeper into the race. But at the moment, seeming to be happy sitting in second, just being able to save fuel. They've got half a second over Mac back and behind. Dennis Gabrovski still holding on, pardon me, but the Williams Esports machine has dropped back just a little bit. Looking back, you can see Maximilian Beneke using that curb, and it is that curb that is always usually the problem coming through turn 5. You either get the inside curb too hard with those left-hand side wheels, or you really clobber that right-hand side exit curb, and that will unsettle the car, and you'll be surprised how easily it will do that. You can take one line on one lap, and you can take exactly the same line on the next lap, but it will have a completely different reaction with the car.
Yeah, it's one of those things you do have to adapt to. As you see these guys coming towards the end of that back straight, then Beneke in full fuel-saving mode, you have to say at this point. And it's not the usual aggressive Beneke that we see. It's a calm, measured, try and get the strategy perfect for Pure Racing Team Red here. And well, if they want to go and win this race, that will probably give them the best chance to be able to do so. It's also the fact that, even if they do get to the front of this train pool, there's no guarantee that they'd be able to pull away in any shape or form because of how prevalent the draft is here.
Right, can I just mention something? Last lap, Logitech GL to Esports, 1:16.905. Pure Racing Team Red, 1:16.905. So both cars exactly the same lap time on that last lap. So these drivers really pushing hard here, because they're still pulling out about maybe 100th of a second, well, more than 100th of a second, but they're just pulling out that little bit on the drivers behind. So definitely these two are really pushing on, but I just feel that Beneke has got that edge with him being in the slipstream in the draft at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's not something you see every day. You can see the bottom right of the screen, lap 18, minus 0.000. Identical lap times on that last time around. Well, it's well, we're getting reports about, well, it was slightly faster there by Beneke, but of course our graphics only good 3 decimal places here in the in the iRacing service, as Beneke still very close coming out of the final corner. Is this the time he goes for it? No, that's the most obvious sign I've seen yet, that he's still in the fuel saving mode. He still wants to get this strategy perfect here, Jack. It's a thinking man's race here for Beneke.
I think Beneke's decided that if that move, the opportunity presents him, he will go for it. But at the moment, he's quite happy in second place. As you say, you can see it in his driving style. The racing line now starting to pick himself up. You can see it along the track as you head through turn 5, that dark line where everyone's laying down the rubber. Of course, we've now been going nearly half an hour into this event. As they head themselves up into turns number 6 and 7. Turn 7 is another one where you've got to watch the outside curb. If you run just a little bit too much, especially on the exit of it, it will spit the rear end of the car out, and you haven't really got much time to save it. The walls are close here at Road Atlanta, and if you do get it wrong, even just a slight mistake, you're on the grass, you're losing time. Tarmac runoff isn't a thing here like we see at most newer tracks. This is a proper classic thoroughbred racetrack.
You step a foot out of line and there's no Tilkodrome runoff to prevent you from getting into trouble. So you do have to be very, very careful when it comes to the track limits here at Road Atlanta, especially coming onto the entry to some of these corners as well. We've seen so many drivers have their own spins, and you can see the exit of the corner there was the big issue for the Piatti yellow car that's currently 4th in line, just really churning up that dirt. Coming out of the final turn, but still stays securely on the racetrack, which is where we want to see these drivers, of course. This race is sizzling along quite nicely here, Paul. We have a train of 4 cars here for the race lead. We have interesting strategy elements to this as well. We have similar things happening a little bit further down in the pack as well. This is bubbling along nicely.
It's one of those races now where everybody's sort of settled down and got themselves into a rhythm here, and they're just playing out that longer strategy game now. They've had that bit of excitement at the start of the race, but everyone's calmed down now and they're in that routine and hitting their marks. So definitely, as Max looking to the outside, but then coming back in, and he's looking, but he's just making sure that Lasse Sorensen knows that he is right there ready to pounce at any time. But as I say, this is where you get people looking to get into that routine, get into that rhythm, and hit their marks, because one of the things that we'll be looking at is fuel numbers, and right now Max is on a great fuel number here.
Yeah, he's been in this situation not from the very start of the race. Of course, he was pole position, led the first lap or so, but ended up falling behind Logitech GLTC Sports. But if life gives you lemons, Jack, you make lemonade and you start to work the strategy.
Yeah, and that is how you got to win one of these races. At the end of the day, it's not just one factor, it's 1,000 that can factor into whether you win or lose. And of course, it's not like there's a small prize on offer here. The prize is one of these testing experiences in a BMW M4 GT4, a very fast race car, very small race car, and it's a good one that young drivers use to learn in the lower ranks before getting up to the likes of GT3 and the GTE machinery. As we look towards...
They had an issue. Yeah, it was... Yeah, sorry to interrupt. That was the Bro Sim Racing car having a issue down into the chicane, and it looks like there's the tail end of it as Dennis Bellin has to get that car spun back around. It was the Wild Animal Russia Yushanka car from long range back straight into the back of that number 17, spins him across the chicane there. And slightly dodgy rejoin there. There's one driver that's had to stamp on the brakes, try to get that car, try to avoid that car stranded in the middle of the racing track. That's Hexa Racing Team Purple that had to take avoiding action, and well, they don't end up hitting that Bro Sim Racing car, but that could have easily been more drivers involved in that one, Paul.
I think that's what is known in the business as a punt to pass, right there. As just getting, no, to be fair, I think it was just getting the braking just a little bit wrong, and before you know it, you end up into the back of the car and you're spinning them round. So nothing intentional in that. It's just that it was unfortunate they got into the back of them and spun them round. So not the best rejoin, as you mentioned as well.
Yeah, it's we like to see things a little bit cleaner, a little bit more respectful than that, it has to be said. But with 23 laps done here, coming up to lap 24, we do have to remind people that the winner of this race does, the winners, because there'll be two drivers, they'll be able to go on a level 1 BMW M Racetrack GT training session in a BMW M4 GT4 car. And Jack, with iRacing looking to maybe go into those into that particular category, of course I can't officially announce anything yet. I don't actually know anything yet about if there's a BMW
this is a dangerous game you're playing right now.
Yeah, but it would be something that's awesome to see, Jack.
Now, I have to be careful what I say here, because I could get into trouble. There is a GT4 confirmed. I know that. However, I'm not going to mention which one it is. So yeah, we're now looking into GT4. Of course, GT4, as I said earlier, a category which really does see a lot of young drivers coming through. A lot of the top GT3 drivers now that you see in the factory drives, they've all come through the GT4 category, and you've got a lot more coming through. We see that, especially the British GT Championship in the UK. There's one team, Century Motorsport, they run a BMW M4 GT4, two BMW M4 GT4s, and then two M6 GT3s. And they actually have one of their GT4 drivers go up to GT3 this year. So it's a good stepping stone for these guys to get into the GT3 machineries and then up into GTE machineries as well. It's that logical step. GT4 is a brilliant category, if you ask me. I love the racing, and the battle for the lead is getting even closer lap on lap.
It is, of course. I'm just, of course, speculating. Of course, the IMS Michelin Pilot Challenge does have, of course, the TCR class, and of course, it has GT4s involved in that one as well. And I'm saying that if if you have a series called IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, then maybe that'll give a couple impressions to someone. But anyway, back to the racing.
Do you know what I can see? Do you know what I can see right now is somebody has already started. Somebody has already started it in the forum saying, "Oh, guys, they've just confirmed it on the broadcast." No, we haven't. No. We have not at all.
But yeah, Kevin's probably writing my firing message right now. But there we go. Yeah, of course, all jokes aside here, Alta Sea Sports still leading this event. Lasse Sorensen at the front of the train, and well, he has been for the vast majority of the race that we've had here gone. That's 30 minutes since the start of this one. Beneke in fuel-saving mode behind him, and that's the same could be said for Backham here. The same could be said for Denis Skrpovsky. That's on the tail end of this train as well. So it'll be interesting to see here, Paul, what Sorensen does when it comes to those pit stops, because he's been sitting out there in the front and using all of that fuel. I have to wonder how much he's going to lose in these pit stops.
If I'm Lasse, I may be thinking, do I accidentally lock up a brake and let Max through and then just sit behind like Max has been doing right now? No, because that's not the mentality of a racing driver. But I'm a bit more cynical. I'm a bit more long in the tooth than some of these drivers. So I think of nefarious things like that. But definitely, he's been creating the hole in the air for them, creating the draft for this group of 3 cars behind them. He surely knows that they're going to end up losing out in the pit stops by the fact that the other cars can go longer and then take on less fuel. So really, do you think, right, go as far as we can, do our pit stop, but or maybe stop a lap or two early if you see that there's a gap in the field there? Because one thing that we haven't really mentioned, and I'm only just noticing it now, lap traffic can become a big factor in this race, because they're catching up to the back of the field here.
Yeah, and well, you hear the words, Jack, lapped traffic and Road Atlanta. What do you think?
I'm getting shivers at the thought. Any driver, there's 2 words that never really go well together around here, is that lap traffic, and as you say, lap traffic and Road Atlanta, it's always hard to get past. If you've got multi-class, it's a bit easier, but when everyone's in the same car, it can get interesting, and that can really play into the hands of some people. You can lose a lot of time in traffic. This could be where Maximilian Beneke gets his chance to get past and just pull away over Lasse Sorensen, his older brother, Marco Sorensen, the 2016 GTE FIA World Endurance Champion. I have a feeling he's going to have had a few tips before today, Connery, so I have a feeling that Lasse will be pretty good in traffic.
Yeah, I get that feeling as well. And, well, they're coming up onto the first set of traffic in just a couple of moments' time. It's about a quarter of a back straight there down the road, and they'll have to get to the Eton Deuce Racing car. That's the number 49, and the Gold Team Racing machine, the 505. But here comes Pure Racing Team Red. They're deciding not to hang around behind this time around. Sorensen, that's the position given away there in towards the chicane. So Pure Racing Team Red now your new race leaders here in the BMW 120 Driving Experience 120 at Road Atlanta. Beneke now leading, coming out of the final corner and across the line, Paul.
Is this now Max's teammates in his ear saying, right, we're coming up to traffic now, you've got enough fuel to hit what we want to do as an ideal strategy, get past and just go for it. You're faster than that driver of the 43 car of Sorensen, get out front, get a gap and make a breakaway. Surely this is what he's doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You just have to do that. And now you can see Beneke, yeah, he is pulling away at this stage. That is a good 0.6 of a second already pulled out. And I think is it really the danger, Jack, that he's seen how dangerous the lap traffic can be here in previous races, and he's decided, I want to get out ahead of this one. I want to pull the gap, so if I do have some trouble with lap traffic, I won't be hurt by it as much as I would previously.
I think it's an interesting decision, the fact that he has gone past now, as we're looking at Lasse Sorensen, Mac Backham. Mac Backham's even looking for a move now, and I don't know whether Lasse did lift on that back straight. I'm pretty sure he didn't, but the way that Maximilian Beneke went past, it looked too easy for it to be a full chat pass and for Lasse Sorensen still to be on full throttle. So whether he let through Maximilian Benecke and he's going for a little bit of a strategy run, I don't know. But however, as Paul said, that's not the mentality of a racing driver, to let someone through. It almost never happens. Now this is where traffic is going to start playing into everyone else's hands, because Maximilian Benecke has got caught in traffic through the S's. Almost contact between himself and the last running car out on the track, the number 49 machine. So Max Benecke really got to be careful now, and all of a sudden Lasse Sorensen right back up on the tailpipe.
Yeah, Benecke out of turn 5. He's able to get that one piece of lap traffic disposed of on the way in towards turn 6 as they hit the anchors into there. Sorensen's been able to close up as a result of Benecke getting backed up behind that lap traffic. The next one will be a little bit easier to deal with, I believe, that number 505 car, as hopefully they'll be quickly getting themselves out of the way. Of course, they're not entitled to get themselves out of the way. They don't have to. Of course, the blue flags are advisory here in iRacing, but it's probably your best option to get out of the way of Maximilian Benecke if the situation arises, Paul.
Yeah, he's on a mission, and he'll be frustrated at getting caught up in that traffic here. Look at how that queue of traffic has just concertinaed up a little bit because of those two cars. Now, I'm just looking at my track map, and there's a little bit of a gap between the leaders now and the rest of the field. So, the next part of the lap traffic, should I say. So, there's going to be an opportunity now for Max just to get the foot down and to try and pull that gap that he was able to pull at the start of the last lap before he got caught up behind that lap traffic. So he needs to make a breakaway now and get the lap traffic in the right part for him, because he just showed what happens when you get it in the wrong part.
Yeah, the wrong part, the very, very wrong part, going through the S's section where any run that you have just gets stalled out behind that car, and you have to wait an eternity to try and get yourself by once again here. Of course, we've had 40 minutes, or coming up to around 40 minutes done in this race, and well, we're still quite a distance out from getting your first set of stops here today. Still strategy cards yet to be played here in this one. Benecke actually forced to go defensive there, coming down in towards that turn 8 10B chicane, but Sorensen didn't decide to go for it. He wants to do a bit of fuel saving of his own there.
Yeah, and fuel saving is really now going to be what Lasse Sorensen wants to probably try and do, and just he's spent the last half an hour probably out the front using up all this fuel in clean air while everyone else behind has gone, well, we could just save a little bit of fuel. Now it's my turn to do it. And this could be where Maximilian Benecke now loses a slight advantage when it comes to the pit stops, because Sorensen is now going to start, as you say, start saving fuel, start bringing everything back as they head themselves into the S's once more for the 31st time. Line astern first through to fourth. Look in the background, tell you about Casibon, all of a sudden closing in on these guys, so we could have a five-way fight for the lead with 5 drivers who are all very quick, very capable drivers, and it's going to get interesting.
Yeah, very interesting indeed, as yeah, that AAA esports car, well, if you look at the lap times last time around, they are the fastest car out there on circuit. That's how slow, for the lack of a better term, that this front train is going with the fuel saving behind Maximilian Benecke. That's allowing now Thibaut Casibon to lock onto the draft of the leading pack and bring himself into contention here. Of course, we see that leading pack, Sorensen. Of course, Benecke, he's sort of feigning defensive towards the inside there, but I think he knows for a fact, Paul, that Sorensen isn't going to be in any hurry to get his way by. It's just a bit of a show.
Yeah, it's a bit of a I'll show you my nose, show you what's happening here, and basically getting the eyes, getting the sight line of Max. But we've seen Max. He's just somebody who could cope with being out at the front of a field and can really put the pressure on. But yeah, so he's got that opportunity to try and just keep out in front. But he would have liked to have made that leap away from the guys behind, and I think he'll be a little bit frustrated about that here in this portion of the race.
Can't let that frustration boil over into anything else, though. That is definitely important to keep your emotions in check in races such as these. See these scenic shots of the leading pack heading their way around. Just to give you a little bit of an update of what's been happening a little bit further down the field, though. It's a little bit more spread out than we usually see, as we currently have a battle going on for P8 and P9 out there on circuit. That's Team 63 versus the Evolution Racing team car. So Josh Thompson versus Johan Hart at this stage, as you'll see it up on the split screen for you now. Those guys are hanging themselves down into that final chicane, so these guys might just be a similar sort of situation with them in terms of the ERT car having to save fuel behind the Team 63 car. So, you know, this first stint of the race, Paul, will just be the sort of the setup phase for that final run to the line in that final hour, half an hour of the race.
Yeah, you want to get as much fuel saving done throughout this portion of the race to extend your first stint. Not only that, but also to mean that you have a shorter pit stop in the second part of the race, because you want to get that pit stop as short as possible, so that when you do come down pit road, you lose as little time as possible on pit road. It's quite a slow pit lane here, so you do have a bit of time lost down that pit lane. But these drivers, they'll all be kept up to date here, because they'll have the teammates, they'll have the team managers doing the calculations and saying, right, we think this team's doing this, or you're on your numbers that you need to hit right now. So they'll be calculating all this as they go along. Look at that P3!
Yeah, P3 having a little bit of a scrap there. That's involving the VRS Quantum Sim Sports car. That's still at the head of the train. All of a sudden, it's come alive here. Grabowski, big slide out of the final corner, and he gets collected by the AAA Esports cars. That's a big, big moment there for PRT Yellow. The number 1 car filing towards the back of the field. Very heavy damage on that BMW M8. We'll have to see how that happens. You can see how closely he was following to the back of that VRS Quantum Sim Sports car, but the back end was stepping out, and always stepping out, and hard into the concrete wall on that left-hand side as well, Jack.
Yeah, there was nothing that Tibak Kazibon could have done to avoid the driver of Dennis Grabowski. It happened so quickly, and you can just see the replay. It snapped and went the other way. Kazibon had nowhere to go. When you actually watch it, the PRT car just didn't even hit the inside apex. You riding on board, you can see the VRS car was the inside. It was almost a car width away from the apex, trying to carry the same amount of speed through. And at Road Atlanta, that just doesn't work, and it will put you into that concrete wall. That concrete wall is not a nice one to hit, and I would expect that Dennis Grabowski may even have some suspension damage to that.
Yeah, he's losing yet more positions as well. He's going side by side with Team 63 into the chicane. I don't think there's much that Grabowski can do here. Yeah, he goes pushed wide onto the grass. He's going to have another moment onto the Suzuki bridge. Well, I think the only option is to bring that car down towards the pit lane. He does decide to stay out another lap here, which I don't think is advisory here, Paul.
I'll tell you what, well held not to hit the wall there at the end there underneath the Suzuki bridge, but definitely he's not having a good time of it at this point. Worth noting as well at the front is that those front two now have got a second and a half over Matt Backham in the VRS Quantum Sim Sport car. So that battling right there, that one little incident, has cost third and fourth place so much time in the battle for the lead here.
Yeah, it looks like it's a little bit more of a 2-horse race at the front now. Pure Racing Team Red and Logitech G Altus Esports. Well, what was a 4-car pack becomes now only 2 at the front of the field. You can see in the background, maybe you see there, Mac Backham heading his way through that little right-hand kink, coming down the back straight, and well, he's about 1.5 seconds off of that leading battle right now. So there's still a chance that he'll be able to catch back up in this situation, especially when you have lap traffic to factor into this one, of which Beneke is going to come up on in just a couple of moments' time. You can see that Bro Sim Racing car, the 666, in front of Beneke at this moment in time, and well, up towards turn 3 they will stay ahead as well. So Beneke, Pure Racing Team Red, is it deja vu here coming down the SS section? Will he be impeded again? It has to be, the answer going to be yes, as Beneke just has to stick behind and wait for the exit of turn 5 to be able to get this pass over the lap traffic done. So yet more lost time. He actually wants to sit behind and get the slipstream on the way down in towards turn 6, but commits down the inside there, and that's the lap traffic disposed of as far as those top 2 are concerned. It will sit ahead of Coanda just for a little bit longer here. So again, Paul, it's Beneke getting trapped behind the lap traffic in the SS section.
And what's happening here as well is that Beneke is actually waking up the lap traffic to the fact that there is lap traffic here. So, all of a sudden, he's going to have it the most difficult task to get through the lap traffic, because if they've not got spotters, or if they've not got the teammates saying, oh, you've got the leaders coming up to you, then they're suddenly going to be, oh, I've got somebody behind me, oh, it's the leader, and before you know it, you're in the middle of the S's, and around, you lose a load of time for the leader. So it's just one of those unfortunate natures of a race like this, where you've got a long race with a pit stop, and you've got such a vast talent pool here. I mean, when you look at the qualifying times, you were talking about a 2.5 second spread between the entire field. So these drivers, they're not slow. They're lapping, that the leaders are lapping. It's just that the leaders have got that little edge, that little bit more pace, lap on lap, that they're able to make their way through.
Yeah, and you can see how much that actually cost that Pure Racing team car, because now Mac Backham in the BRS Grand Sim Sports 8 machine, they've been able to close up what was a 2.5 second gap, and now firmly within the slipstream of your leading two cars. So there's Backham as he hits his way down in towards the braking zone for that turn 10A, 10B chicane. So the 4-car train that became a 2-car train that became a 3-car train is now in full effect as through the final corner they go. We're heading quickly towards the halfway point of this race. Just 12 minutes to go until we see that pit stop window open for the single stoppers here today. And of course we do have a little bit of a battle further back as well. That's AAA Esports and Williams Esports currently having a bit of a scrap over P4 here, Paul. So these guys are going to be going at it here, coming up towards those first set of stops. Yeah,
and these are two drivers who will know each other pretty well as well, working their way through from various battles throughout series and some of the special events that we have as well on iRacing. And I mentioned that because, of course, the Petit Le Mans will be coming up soon. That'll be the next special event for us, I believe. I'm sure Hugo's about to correct me if I'm wrong, but good, I am right. I know things. Who knew that? But yeah, so definitely these drivers are, they'll be used to battling against each other. Maybe not as often as they would like, but they will be used to it. As here comes the Williams car now down the inside into the braking zone of the chicane. You can run too wide through there, but Casabon deciding, you know what? Let's just back out of that one, sit behind for the time being, get a bit of fuel saving.
Yeah, not really fought there by Thibaut Casabon, as Borcher looking to pull out the gap now, and he's already doing a decent job at it. 2.5 tenths of a second already after that pass has been completed. And of course for these guys as well, it's a matter of chasing down your leading pack as well. So those guys are currently about 2.7 seconds down the road from the perspective of that Williams Esports car. So it's definitely within striking distance. Remember how Backham closed up a 2.5 second gap in just a couple of moments when the leaders got stuck behind traffic.
Yeah, and this is it. This is what we've mentioned about the traffic, how it can have such a huge effect on people. So, you never know what will happen here, and there's still plenty of time in this race. An hour and 10 minutes remaining to be able to pull off some great either strategy calls or even moves as well on these drivers. But we've got battle further down. We've got Hellenic still battling down in 11th place, but now they've got the relay sim racing car behind them, putting the pressure on them. Not that far behind them is Triple B Stream Endurance Gold, and not that far behind them is the BMW Team Crowcat. So Nicky Katzberg with a recovery drive going on here after his Turn 1 incident earlier on. He's trying to get back involved in this battle.
Yep, trying to get back involved, but right now not quite close enough to be able to make his presence known in this situation. Hellenic Racing Red currently leading this particular sort of loosely gapped train of cars here just outside of the top 10, and Pil Kazantzas doing a good job at this moment in time. Of course, the top 10 is eluding him at this point. 3.5 seconds until he's able to get the car, well, it is the gap between himself and the car that will allow him to get himself inside of that top 10. But so he's more concerned about those drivers behind now rather than those drivers in front of him. So with about 9 minutes to go until we get that first pit stop window open, Jack, and everyone just consolidating position at this stage. We have an incident out there on circuit, the 528 car.
Laps.
That is the Legacy Drive Readers Club car that has got itself involved in an incident with the laps machine. That's number 11 off of the chicane. That's a bit of a naughty one there from the 528. I have to say, they deviated from their line coming off the corner, tried to block the line, and well, it hasn't exactly been successful for them, Jack.
I would actually disagree with what you've just said. I think the 528 Paul Slavanik lost the rear end coming off of the chicane. The laps car tried to go up the inside. It clearly had the better run off the corner, and the smallest bit of contact has sent them both into that tyre wall. They are both going to have for heavy damage because they both hit it at 100 kilometers an hour each, but at least it wasn't that concrete wall, because that would have been a lot more damage to those cars. The Legacy Drive Readers Club car looks to be still out on track, but it's a long way down and a long way off the pace.
The back end did drift out, yes. There wasn't a big counter steer from the Legacy Drive Readers Club car. I was just riding on board with them throughout that incident, and you can see that, or you can feel that the back end was just starting to step out, but the driver just let it happen for all intents and purposes. Go on, Paul.
Big news is that the leader 1.4 seconds ahead. Max Benecke is making a breakaway right now. He obviously has had some help along the way they're coming under pressure at Altus, but they must have had some help from lap traffic, and all of a sudden 1.4 seconds across the line between your leader and second place. And now Logitech G Altus Esports, they're coming under huge pressure from Matt Backham in that VRS Honda Sim Sport car.
Yeah, Mac Backham wants to start to get a move on here as well in that VRS Honda Sim Sports car. 3.5 tenths of a second between the two of them right now as Pure Racing Team look to break away at the front of the field. They've gotten the break that they need, and now they can maybe start to run off into the sunset here, coming towards the end of the first stint of the race. Backham, it was briefly side by side with Sorensen coming through that sort of turn 1, turn 2 section on this lap, but wasn't able to pull off the pass and has to slot back in behind and try to live to fight another day, it has to be said here. But Backham coming under that Suzuki bridge now in towards the final corner. Sorensen's done a good job here of keeping him at bay, able to gain a good couple of tenths of a second advantage coming across that start-finish line. So Altus Esports looking to try and get onto the back of Benecke once again, but he is pretty far down the road at this point. 1.5 seconds, still a surmountable gap, especially at a circuit such as this, but it's certainly not the position you want to be in, Paul.
We'll come to me. It's that gap now. I think Max got to the point where Max has got to the point where he has got you're right there, he's got that gap there. A little mistake from the Logitech G Altus Esports car, and Sorensen now maybe just getting caught up over the bumps there through turn 5, and it just cost him a little half a tenth or so. And Matt Backham putting the intense pressure on, but Max, he's been able to clear the slipstream now. He's able to break away and able to just keep his foot down. And here comes Mac then, down the inside of the kink. He's not waiting, he's gone for it, and he's gone.
Yeah, gains P2 on the way onto the brakes into the chicane. So that is Mac Backham moving up one position for his VRS Honda Sim Sports team. Of course, we still have got second drivers to be concerned about here in this race. So once these guys come down in for their pit stop, they will have to get a driver change underway. For Maximilian Benecke, who's currently a race leader, it will be Maximilian Wernig stepping in for him. So the two Maxes as part of that Pure Racing Team red car. For VRS Honda Sim Sports, though, you currently have Backham behind the wheel, and it will be Jeremy Bootsloop making an appearance later on in this race. So that is going to be the second driver for them. I'm wondering who's the second driver for Altus Esports as well, because they have quite an interesting roster. Well, currently it's there's currently 3 drivers signed up to that particular roster. I would put Simone Maria Marcheno in the car next, but he currently is not connected to the server, so it might not be him making an appearance here, Jack. So it'll be an interesting dynamic to see what happens once these second drivers get behind the wheel of the car, because drivers don't like to say it sometimes, but there is sometimes a mismatch in the teams here today. One driver being faster than the other, and how that affects the second half of the race here.
And you do see it everywhere. You're going to see it whatever. As soon as teams become involved, you're always going to get people with slightly different paces. At the front of the field, probably not so much, because everyone's going to be very similar pace. To be fighting up at the sharp end of a race like this, you really do have to be at the best of your game. But there's actually the midfield and the lower end of the field. You are going to see slower drivers in the car. You are going to see people who are much slower in traffic and maybe much less confident in traffic with these faster guys around him, as Thibaut Casabon is onto pit lane. Now, there's a considerable amount of damage to the number 2 car, but I know that he has been in the walls so far today.
Yeah, being in the walls maybe, but you can see, you can get that front end, the bodywork of that BMW changed out in the pit stop, so that shouldn't be a big issue there for Thibaut, as we also have the Rebellion Racing Team white car that's currently on the pit lane. So some drivers starting to get an idea of coming down in early here, just about 2.5 minutes before the halfway point of the race. There is Maximilian Benecke heading his way through on one of the lap traffic here. That's Sim Racing Tools green, and now does he decide to come in? There's a trio of lap traffic right ahead of him. If he comes in now, he might just be able to avoid them. It all depends on where he files out then in terms of the pit stop. He doesn't decide to pit, so he'll have to deal with this one, Paul.
He certainly will. Interesting point to note is the AAA car has taken tyres on this pit stop, so that's going to be interesting to see how that works out, whether we see drivers double stint, because the conditions here, it's rather hot is the track, so 110 degrees, so these drivers have got to contend with that with the tyres, so I can see why he has gone for a fresh set of tyres here, because I would imagine they're going to be changing tyres to get the most out of the strategy.
Yeah, well, especially with the driver change, that taking tyres will probably be the best idea here today. The tyre drop off not really all that much here in this one, not really giving you the margin that you need to be able to make the double stint work, but we'll have to see if drivers do decide and teams decide to not put tyres on their one and only stop here, looks like, for most of them. We've had Hellenic Racing Red come down in, Team Walking Dead GTE, we have Quasar Sim Racing as well, Sim Racing Tools Red deciding to head their way in, so there's a big bulk of cars deciding to head their way down on this particular lap. Pure Racing Team, though, they will decide to stay out, and they're staying out behind a bit of lap traffic there. That's the Autosport orange car that's getting in the way. There's the view of the pit lane as teams are getting their pit stop service done. 5 cars, number 5 team is in. So that's Williams Esports, that's the front runner, and there's a Coanda car deciding to come in as well. That's the 81 Coanda car that has decided to get their pit stop service done now. So a lot of this, Paul, is teams deciding that maybe they've been able to find a gap in the lap traffic, deciding to come in a little bit early to try and slot themselves in.
Yeah, this is it. You look at where you're coming at in terms of your pit stop strategy and everything. Pretty much everybody's coming in because it's on the hour as this. Arthur the Hook is behind the wheel now for Williams Esport. They'll be getting a full service here, but it's a busy old pit lane for you now. BMW Team Crowcat are on pit road as well, and I believe they've just missed their pit stall slightly. Ooh. So yeah, it's interesting times here, but everybody's on pit road now. The majority of people on pit road now making their stops.
Yeah, absolutely. Pit lane is a very, very busy place indeed. Quantus Sports 81, they've gone out ahead here of Williams Esports, and well, with the pit stop time starting to come through, that's a very, very long stop to the likes of Hellenic Racing right now. They're up to 45 seconds on this up. Here comes Pure Racing Team Red then down on towards the pit lane. So your race leader is in, so is second place, so is third, and so is fourth. So the vast majority of cars coming down on towards the pit lane. Beneke getting himself stopped perfectly in his box, no overshooting here. Same with Backham for that Virus Cranston Sports number 8 car. So driver changes in full effect here. Vernig will get behind the wheel of the PRT red car. We're going to have a couple of others get in as well. Virus Cranston Sports, it is Jeremy Bootloop getting in. And who is it going to be for Altus Esports? Just that process getting itself underway right now. It's actually Alexander Laritzian there getting behind the wheel of the Altus Esports car, Jack.
I don't know whether my screen was bugging out or not, but I have a feeling that the entry to pit lane for the Altus Esports car was extremely slow for Lasse Sorensen. Either that or my screen is completely bugged out, but something didn't seem quite right when he came down onto pit lane. He wasn't going full speed down to pit lane.
I will just have a look at it because it is marginal in terms of the fuel here. The engine's off coming through the final sector.
It's completely off.
It sputters. We'll have to get a replay of this one, but that's how marginal on the fuel that some of these guys were. And while Sorensen, he was at the front of the leading train for so long that it might have hurt, well, it definitely would have hurt his fuel economy here today. He is able to recover it back to pit lane, but that's a lot of lost time, Paul.
It certainly is a lot of lost time, and yeah, it's hardly ideal. We can see it on the replay now, and he's in 5th gear there, and that's it. There's no sound at all. It's just completely dead. So they've basically freewheeled that back to the pits. I mean, credit to them. They obviously had a little bit of fuel left just to get them up over that hill, but then coming back down, that's it. You're using gravity to help you into pit road. So they struggled to get onto pit road there, and in fact they did take the tour.
Yeah, because their pit stall would have been a little bit further down than where they stopped, perhaps, unless they just didn't get themselves set in their box correctly. And of course, since the engine's dead, they can't move, get it in reverse, and get it set properly. But that is so unfortunate. They've had to take the tow, and that's going to be at least an extra minute or so down on the pit lane. Go on,
they struggled to actually leave the pit stall there as well. It's Alexander Lauritzen, but now after that pit stop, down to 23rd place after all of that. Also worth noting as well, AAA Esports, they had a speeding on pit road or an unsafe pit exit, and they had to come down and serve a stop and hold penalty, so they've dropped down to 13th in all of this. So real nightmare for some of these teams and some of these drivers. One thing I am amazed, the miracle powered Simsa car is still out there at the front of the field doing lap, not yet pitted. I would imagine they're going to come down pit road this time.
Yeah, and well, there's no sputtering in that car just yet. They'll probably decide to come down in. That will be the best bet here. They do hit the pit lane. But meanwhile, we do actually have a couple of teams that decided to go for double stints. That's the team at the 63 car and the Coanda 81 car. They have decided to double stint the tires here today. So that is an interesting predicament for those two particular teams. They are the only teams that have gone for the double stint, at least that are in any way competitive at the front of the field. We've had a couple of others further back, like Hexa Racing, Team Purple, and H&M. Their extra stop doesn't count as they had to come down in early. But these guys, it's a big dice roll here, Jack.
It is, and it's going to be an interesting one. There was a very sensible endurance driver once said that if you're putting a new driver in the car, you always give him new tyres, and I stand by that. That man was Mr. Tom Christensen, the multiple Le Mans winner. I think he's won it 9 times. I'm pretty sure someone's about to correct me. So that's pretty much a gospel rule within endurance racing. However, this race is short. It is possible to double stint the tyres. With the temperature, it's going to be tough. Dion Fiallo in the Team 63 is leading the race. He's got a second, just over a second back to David Williams in that 81 Coanda car. But Maximilian Vennig is only 9 seconds behind these guys. And with an hour still to run, it's going to be too close. It's not enough to hold on to the race lead. I don't think double stinting is worth doing when everyone else has taken new tyres.
Yeah, it's going to be a struggle for them, but if they can make it work, then it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But with the halfway point over and done with the pit stops over and done with, we can take a little bit of a break here on RaceSpotTV and on the iRacing Esports Network. We'll have to go RaceSpotTV fan immersion on board with who? That is the question. Why not? Let's go with the number 4 of Pure Racing Team Red. So this is going to be a lap or so on board with Maximilian Wernig at the halfway point of this race. Well, that was a couple of laps on board there with Pure Racing Team Red. Maximilian Wenig taking over from Maximilian Benecke here for the second stint of this race. Of course, he was leading coming down on towards the pit lane, but ended up third coming off it because of Team 63 and VRS Quantum Sports 81 going for a double stint strategy in terms of the tyres. The objective for him, chase them down and pass them. It is as simple as that. You're watching the BMW Driving Experience 120 at Road Atlanta. I'm Conor Maddock. I'm joined by Paul Smith and, of course, Jack Stiles as well. And, well, we do have another person in the commentary booth, and that will be Mac Backham, of course, a driver for VRS Quantum Sports, driver of that number 8 machine as well. And, Mac, how's your race looking?
It was looking a little bit better at the start, I think, but we dropped back a little bit compared to the PRT car. I think we just lost out a little bit in the end when the Altus car didn't quite work together with us, so we lost a little bit of time. And then on pit entry, we had like a huge blockade almost. So yeah, that cost us quite a bit. I hope we can catch back up, but not sure.
Of course, one of your sister cars, the 81, has gone for a double stint strategy on the tyres here. Is that something that you were looking to do as well, or do you think it's a little bit too out of reach in terms of the numbers there?
I don't know. For me, at the end, the car felt really bad to drive, so I wouldn't do it. But we decided the sister car was so far back anyway. If they took tires, they would never win the race anyway, so they really have nothing to lose by doing it. So they just went for it and see if it works. But looking at it now, it doesn't seem all too fast.
Yeah, it seems like that Pure Racing Team Red car is closing in quite quickly on your sister car, but in terms of your own, of course, you have Jeremy Bootloop behind the wheel of that one right now. How's the lap traffic been for you guys? Because it's always a bit of a concern here at Road Atlanta. There are so many tricky spots where you can just get stuck behind with no way through. How's it been for you?
Yeah, it's been really tricky. I think in general, at least from what I've seen from the top 3, we've just had a really tough time overtaking lapped cars, especially the ones that are like a little bit further back in the field. They're just costing us quite a lot of time, but so far it hasn't really seemed like it's one car that's gotten an advantage from it. I think it's just pretty bad for everyone.
Yeah, currently you guys are sitting around about, I would say 4.2 seconds behind what will be your, well, quote-unquote effective race leader if the other two drivers, other two teams went for the strategy that you guys went for. What's the plan for the rest of this race though? Is it just to just try and work and see how this race develops, just hope that maybe Pure gets slowed up by those cars that have gone for the different strategy?
Yeah, that would be ideal. I think Jeremy and the other Max are quite equal pace looking at their laps in clean air, but yeah, maybe just some bad luck in traffic. It happens to everyone, and you're right back up in the draft because the gap is not that big yet, so it's definitely possible. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I hope we can get a close fight in the end, but I believe what you're thinking.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to a close fight as well. And is there anything you want to say before you go?
Yeah, I just want to thank our partners, Virtual Racing School, Tech, SimQuip, Antwerp Design, and you guys for broadcast, of course, and everyone for participating today from the team.
Well, thank you very much for joining us here at the halfway point of the race. That was Mac Backham there for that VRS Quantum Sports number 8 car. Paul, they're running pretty strongly right now. Of course, they do have that gap that they're having to work with all the way to the PRT car. Speaking of the PRT car, they've just been able to make their way by on the VRS Quantum Sports number 81 car, and that was rather quick there. So they didn't lose that much time getting that whole thing over and done with. Yeah,
absolutely. That's always going to be the struggle with going double stinting, especially in these conditions. It's not going to work out. Not with these tyres, and not when everybody else is on fresh tyres, as was pointed out by Jack. So definitely, Pure Racing Team. It's just a matter of time. It's not if, it's when. For when they take over the lead with Team 63, but Dion Fiala will put up a fight, but I think they'll realise, you know what, this isn't our fight right now.
Yeah, well, Kwanda will be demanding that he put up a fight in this situation, as Vedic, another bit of lap traffic for him to have to deal with down into the chicane. That's Quasar Sim Racing getting themselves well out of the way again. but Venik not really all that impeded there into the braking zone. So now he can set his sights on the car ahead of him, and that one will be for position. That's the Team 63 car currently leading this race by a second across the line there, Jack. So this is looking pretty clean here from Venik, and just doing all that he needs to do.
Well, last time around the racetrack, Maximilian Venik gained a second on the driver of Dion Fiallo, so I expect Maximilian Venik to be up on the rear of your leader by the end of this lap, potentially even making a move, because as soon as he gets that draft, he's within 0.6 of a second now. You can really see just how gone those tyres are on the 63 compared to those fresh new tyres on the number 4 as they head themselves into turn number 6 and 7. This is where Maximilian Venik really needs to get his head down, get some good ground made up on the 63 and attempt a move into the 10A, 10B chicane.
Yeah, looks like he's just going to have to be setting up for that, and well, this is just a display of how quick fresh tyres are on these BMW M8s. There's the flash of the lights there for Venik, as of course universal driver signal of get out of my way through the chicane. Fiallo will ignore it for now. Of course, he is battling for position here, so he doesn't have to get out of the way of Venik, as it's very, very close here coming through the final corner. Here comes Venik looking for a line on the outside of the corner. It's just the cars with the space, so he has to dive back in towards the inside line, late on the brakes into here side by side for the race lead, and that's Venik slotting his way through. Fiallo did put up a little bit of a fight there, Paul, but you know, ultimately it is fresh tyres that come out on top.
It wasn't the car's width. It wasn't the car's width on the outside, I can tell you that. But yeah, it was a matter of time, and Dion, as much as he would like to fight, it was never going to happen there. And you can see now the way that Venik is being able to just pull away here at the front of your field. So he's certainly putting on a good display with those fresh tyres. When you look at his gap between him and Jeremy Bootloop, who's the next driver who did take tyres, 4 seconds between the two of them. So that just goes to show what a gap that he's been able to pull out in this stint so far. We have had Autosport Orange have a major incident. They've lost the bonnet here, the number 19, and this is through turn 3 that they've lost control.
Yep, it is. Looks like the back end just drops out from underneath them, as we'll see it up on the replay for you now. Two tyres slightly on the curb, big impact there with the concrete wall on the inside of the corner just coming off of it, and well, Stephen Cross looking to try and get that car back going, but I don't think that car is in any real state to continue out there on the circuit. No doubt the marshals will be waving those meatball flags, trying to get him down on towards the pit lane, because I don't think that car is in any healthy state to continue. So, oh, there's a car that's gone off there. That's right in front of your leaders. That's a laps car, as being a lapped car, the laps car. There we go for that number 11. That's right in front there of Venik and Fiallo. So if he got that a little bit more wrong in the wrong way, Jack, he could have collected your race leader.
Yeah, had he lost the rear end of that, come back onto the racetrack, there's not much those guys would have been able to do to avoid an accident. So very good driving there from the number 11 machine, and managing to get himself safely back onto the racing surface. But that's always a scary moment to go off there up at turn number 5. We haven't seen anyone have any major issues there. We've just seen that one from the number 11 machine, but touch wood, that's the only one we've seen so far, and it's the only one we're going to see for the remaining 40 minutes. But now I've said that, we're definitely going to see one.
Yep, of course. You know, the curse of the commentator works in weird ways here. As, yeah, 40 minutes to go in this one. And, well, those guys heading themselves through still. That's the currently David Williams in the Quanta Sports number 81 car. This is the Quanta car that's on the old tyres here. Trying to work his way through on the laps car, and down the inside it goes. No, that was Jeremy Bootloop. He's been collected just as the laps car was trying to get itself out the way. Bootloop goes directly into the side of it. Here's a replay up on screen for you now. Up through turn 3, the first Coanda car gets by safety. The second, not by any means, and they hit the side and they hit the tyre barriers as well, Paul.
I'm sorry, Jeremy, but I think that's a little bit on you. You've come from a long way behind there. Yes, I can see why he'd think that laps car is letting him through, but that laps car is always going to get back on the racing line, which is where he was heading for. I'm sorry, Jeremy, but I'm calling that's your mistake right there.
Yeah, I agree. There's nowhere else that 11 could have gone. You know, I guess you could argue there's an extra quarter of the car's width closer to the curb they could have gone. But, you know, at that point, you're really asking for a little bit too much there, especially with how far Bootloop was behind, just diving it in. And yeah, that is so unfortunate there for VRS Cranston Sports number 8 car. And that was the 8 car that was on the charge, trying to catch up to your Pure Racing Team Red car that currently leads this race. And now PRT Red, Jack, they're sitting much prettier than they once were.
So the closest car to PRT Red now that can challenge for the lead, because they're on new tyres, is Arthur LeHook, currently in 4th position in the Williams Esports car. But there's 2 cars ahead of him who didn't take tyres at the pit stop and who he is lapping faster than. So I expect him to get past both of those. One is 5 seconds up the road, the other one is 8 seconds up the road. So for Arthur LeHook, he's got to get themselves around them. But he's 10 seconds behind that PRT Red machine. So honestly, can't see him closing that gap, and especially when Maximilian Venig is over half a second a lap quicker than him over the course of a lap.
Yeah, this is looking very promising for Pure Racing Team Red. Williams Esports, they need to find another gear if they're going to be able to challenge for the race lead at the end of this event, let alone getting themselves into the podium. Of course, they do have those 2 cars on all the tyres ahead of them, like you've already said, but it's still no guarantee that they'll be able to do anything about them, and they're still quite far off them right now. It's still another 4.5 seconds down the road before they get to the number 81 Commander Sim Sports car, so it's going to be a long road for Williams Esports. And but the thing is, here at Road Atlanta, you can never really count your chickens until they've hatched, Paul. I think is the best way I can describe that one. You know, we've had many a Petit Le Mans here where things have just been completely bonkers inside the final hour of the race. So it's not done.
Forget the final hour. The first hour, the first 5 hours of last year's race were absolutely mad. I took an intake of breath there whilst you were talking, because I was happened to be looking at this battle that we're looking at now. And it's the 9th and 10th place AAA Esports and the Relay Sim Racing, and Andreas Lerkamp got extremely close to the rear bumper of Ricardo Ferreira in front of him. So that's why I took a little bit of a sharp intake of breath from myself, because I thought there may be a little bit of shenanigans happen at turn number 7, but it's all good. They're both still going, and I mean, really, these drivers, they're pushing on, although a little bit of a mistake from Lerkamp then has just lost him a 10th or 2 through the S's here.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, Jack, the real life side of things as well in Petit Le Mans shows that races aren't done when they look to be done.
Yeah, so the one that I always remember with Petit Le Mans, the one which always stands out for me, is 2015, where it was so wet, and this is back before when the DP was still a thing, the big American V8 with a big steel chassis, and they couldn't find grip in the rain, and they did cancel the race after about 4 hours, but throughout that whole 4 hours, it was GT cars that were leading the race overall, and it was a GT car that won the race overall. One of the few times in recent history that a GT car has won a race where prototypes have been involved. Usually prototypes can hand over fist beat them, but that year in the rain, it just really showed how unpredictable this place can be. They really struggled for the grip. The GTs could find the grip on that wet tyre and just get themselves going, and eventually the race was called off for safety reasons, which was fair enough. But Road Atlanta really is a track where it's not over until that checkered flag flies. Doesn't matter if the race is 15 minutes or whether it's 10 hours, it really can change very quickly.
It can, especially when that lap traffic is an ever-present figure in races like this. Meanwhile, we do have a driver that's waiting to get themselves a little bit of a chat with us. That's Josh Thompson as part of that Team 63 car that's currently running in 2nd place, having gone for the double stint strategy here. Josh, it's your team going for a strategy that only one other team has also gone for. That's the Commander number 81 car. Would you say it's working out for you right now?
For now, yes. But it's going to be if they can hang in for the last 10 minutes. That's where it's going to be brutal. For now, it looks promising. We've dropped the Commander car, which is a good sign to say they're on the same strategy. And looking at the gaps back, So we were racing the ERT car. The gap stayed the same the entire stint. So at the moment, it's working all right.
Yeah, it looks like it's relatively comfortable for you at this stage, but like you said, it's the final 10 minutes where things might just be a little bit sketchy for you. The track temperature's sitting at about 42. We've seen it at 43 degrees Celsius right now, and which is why a lot of these teams have decided against the double stint strategy. What was the decision making like behind the scenes that made you actually go for it?
I don't really know, to be honest. I think I would have changed tyres personally, because I was driving it, and like Max said on his interview, it was all over the place and I didn't feel comfortable at all. Came into the pits ready to change him, and Dion saw it and went, "Oh, we're going for it." I'm like, "Okay, I'll let you do what you want to do then, Dion. You can do it. If it goes on you, it's on you." But the tyre wear wasn't horrific, and with the iRacing, how the track is, it gets very hot towards the end of the first stint and it'll start to cool off a bit. So now in the moment, like you said, it's fluctuating quite a lot between 43 to 38, 41. If it cools down a bit, it kind of helps us even more. And with this being such a short track, now traffic involved, I think the gain on the tyre between taking tyre and no tyre isn't going to be huge.
Interesting indeed. So we'll definitely have to keep a close eye on how things progress from this point forwards. And you bring up the correct point. Is because we have the dynamic time of day in effect for this one, and well, we're past midday at this point. So as this race goes deeper in, then you'll find that the temperatures tend to drop off just a little bit. So it might help you guys towards the end of the race in that respect. But you guys still expecting to finish P2, or is it going to be a sort of just trying to get on the podium sort of deal?
Podium. I think the Williams car will catch us. I think that's a matter of time. It's just how long we can hang on for till that point. But it was nothing to lose. Like I said earlier, we were racing the Commander car and the ERT car for 5th, 6th, 7th after I messed up in my stint a little bit. So to us, this is more of a gain if we do it this way. What's the worst going to happen? Finish where we were. So it's got to hang on. I think if we get P3, I'll be sure for that. They were basically a privateer team compared to a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, a lot of the top teams running here are the sorts of teams that you see in the VRS GTR Racing World Championship. You have your Commanders, you have your Pures, you have your ERTs, and others as well. So, just as I guess, using your own words, a privateer team coming into this one, it seems like you guys are on for a good result. Is there anything you want to say before we let you go?
Yeah, you guys. Thanks to you guys for doing the broadcast. Obviously, great little event and series. What this has become. Obviously, Dion and Mavano for letting me actually do this race with Dion. Obviously, they didn't have a team for this, so looking to nice team up with him for that. And yeah, Craig's Helpshop as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh, big slide there from H&M, who's currently behind the Team 63 car. A little bit scary, but thank you very much, Josh, for joining us here in the RaceSpotTV commentary booth. I'll let you get on your way now. There we go. As Paul, there was a bit of an interesting chat there with Team 63. They decided to go for the double stint because, well, we don't have anything else to lose,
Why not?
Why not?
That's always a winning strategy of as you're coming down the pit road, just like, whatever, let's go for it. Well thought out strategy there, but I tell you what, it's working for them at the moment. After the hook, however, coming up behind the Williams Esports car. If you're Team 63, you're hoping now that David Williams puts up a strong fight here and to try and hold back that Williams car as long as possible. And as I say that, Williams make the move into turn number 7. It was inevitable, but right there, that was after the hook thinking, we need to get a shift on and we need to move right now. That, I will say one thing, that Pure Racing Team red car hasn't actually pulled out as big a gap at the front as I thought it would have. So it's almost working at the moment, as Josh mentioned on that interview. But I think now Williams Esports, they've got their sights firmly set in front of them at that Team 63 car.
Yeah, just take every single obstacle as it comes. Of course, a 17.7 there for Williams Esports across the line, diving down the inside of the lap traffic, getting that disposed of relatively quickly. And, well, inside the final 30 minutes of this race now, the objective for Williams Esports, catch and pass Team 63, who are currently 3.7 seconds down the road, but of course on older tyres, so Williams Esports will be able to eat into that gap quite healthily over the next couple of laps, so we can get a fight on for the final step of the podium. Meanwhile, we have a spin out there on circuit. That's the H&M car, the 20, has had a bit of a moment. Is this the first victim of turn 5? Well, it's not a solo car incident, it's contact from behind. So that was the the Legacy Driver Readers Club gets into the back of them coming through turn 5, and well, it was the Aldous Esports car that also got into the back of them. So it was just a big cluster coming through turn 5 there, Paul, and it's basically our first victims of turn 5 now.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it wasn't really actually an issue with turn 5 at all, but that was a snowplow going through right there was Alexander Lauritsen. Obviously not happy with what happened at the end of their stint and their pit stop, so they've had to work their way through. An incident for Racing Sim Tools Red down at the chicane, the number 80 car. I'm trying to get a look at this right now, and we'll see what happens. And basically, they just pull over to the side and the inside of the chicane and are running then really slowly. Now, was that them just trying to get out the way and thinking that's the best way of doing it? Because Gregory, I can think of better ways of getting out of a way of lap traffic. He just pulls over. Watch him. There you go. Pulls over. Away you go, lads. Go through. And then sets off again.
Yeah,
How bizarre that.
There are safer ways to do things. Probably better ways. Probably ways that lose you less time. But that's the one he's decided to go for. So, well, he has to get that over. Well, get out of the way now. He's made that decision. Now he's lost the time, and now he has to go chasing back for it. Coming through the latter portion of this race. There's the P13-14 battle. Triple B Stream Endurance Gold. This is the Simsa ISR machine. There's Ronald Streicher behind the wheel of the number 9, and of course Barry Morrison in the 146 machine there. So these guys have had relatively decent races. The Triple B Stream car, they've gained a good couple of positions on their qualifying here. They started P17, they're now up into P13. The Simsa ISR car, they are losing one position from P13 down into P14, but it isn't the most dire of races for them, Jack. So, it's, for some of these teams entering this event, some of them, let's be honest, didn't really expect to win things here today, especially when you've got so much talent in terms of the pro drivers coming in and trying to compete for that prize. But for some of these teams, sort of mid-pack and lower down, they have their own goals in mind. That might not be necessarily the race win, and that's what they're going to be chasing now.
In some way, I'm actually surprised we haven't seen more of the pro teams do this today. The prize that's on offer, you'd think that some of those guys would really go for it, as BBB Stream really slow into turn number 1 that time. So, but it also gives, as you say, a lot of these teams who probably didn't have a chance of winning here today, we're here probably more for the experience. If they get a chance to race against the best on iRacing, and I think for any team that's going to be something they want to do, because you can learn so much. Petit Le Mans is next weekend as well. They can use that as a learning experience. We could probably see a lot of these teams are going to be running that M8 next weekend because of the data and the learning they can do here today. So actually you'll probably find a lot of these teams here today running this in preparation for Petit Le Mans next week, as opposed to having that eye on the prize. The likes of Pure Racing Team, the likes of VRS Commander, the likes of Williams Esports probably coming in to today trying to win this race. And of course these mid-pack teams, there's still a chance something could go horrifically wrong. There's still 25 minutes left as we see Barry Morrison looking down to the inside as he heads up to the 10 chicane, and he's going to get it done on the brakes nice and easy up into 13th position, getting himself past that BBB Stream Endurance Gold car.
I just want to say a theory that maybe I have as to why we've lost the Pure Racing Team yellow car all of a sudden. Maybe a technical problem for them, but I'm sure one of you guys can find that out. But anyway, one of my theories as to why a lot more of the quote-unquote bigger teams aren't competing in this event is because they've been involved in the VRS GT World Championship. They've been involved in the Porsche Esports Super Cup yesterday. A lot of these people have basically got every weekend and every week filled with World Championships or major races. Some of them just need a break. You know, some teams are quite happy to run teams and have, you know, put them in every week to keep the practice, but some people eventually do need a break at some point.
Yachty Yellow disqualified, so they have gone over the instant limit here. So they were solidly inside the top 10, and well, P8 to be exact. They had H&M car as lap traffic go off ahead of them through 10.5, and they ran into the back of them. 4x disqualified. You've gone over the limit of 25 for this session, so we won't be seeing Pure Racing Team Yellow at any point in the last couple of moments of this race. So, yep, Jack is the first victim of the instant limit in effect here.
And in one way, it doesn't really surprise me because of how easy the 1x are to pick up here, and the way that Pure Racing Team were disqualified. I believe that may have been a 4x. The contact they had coming out of the exit of turn number 5, but the incident limit does strike, and it is something that drivers need to watch out for. We've still got 23 minutes remaining. You can definitely see a lot more drivers being disqualified, maybe a little bit more in the mid-pack as opposed to up the front of the field. Everyone's now settled into a bit more of a groove. They're going to be able to just solidify themselves into their place and just avoid them 1x's. We obviously saw Logitech G-Altus Esports Pure Racing Team Red at the start of this race really going for it. They're probably going to be close to the instant limit the way that they were driving around the circuit, and a lot of other teams are going to be as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just keeping a close eye on things, like the gap between Williams Esports and Pure Racing Team Red here, because it was about 10.2 seconds across the line. It's currently 9.8 seconds between P1 and P3 there. So Williams Esports, they're making progress here when it comes to the race lead. Whether it's going to be enough inside the final 22 minutes of this race, that is a completely different issue for Arthur LeHook. Of course, he does have to still pass Team 63, and he might have a little bit of trouble doing that. Speaking of, he's about 9/10 of a second behind him right now, Paul.
Yep, gaining on that car in front. I tell you what, Dion Fiala, his last lap, not this one, but his last lap was matching your race leader's pace, but now he's just dropped about 3/10 on your race leader. But Arthur LeHook doing a fantastic job, 17.271 on the last lap, up to the back of that Team 63 car. Gap behind them is, I would say, round about 3 seconds or so. So these drivers, they are they're really putting on a good effort here.
Yep, good effort. Williams Esports looking locked onto the back of Team 63 then. So this is the battle for P2 here. A lot of lap traffic ahead of these guys as well. So it's going to be a bit of a struggle for them to work their way through, either during or after this battle. Down into the turn A, turn 10B braking zone. Yellow is still ahead in this situation, but how is that lap traffic going to affect things? It's a good line through the corners there for Arthur LeHook. Side by side under the Suzuki bridge they go, and Williams Esports have been able to pull off the pass. A very, very quick pass as well there, Jack. So wasting no time here for Williams Esports. They don't have the time to waste.
And I think Dion Fiallo has finally realised that there's probably not much more competition that he can possibly go for. You heard his teammate Josh Thompson say just a few minutes ago their aim is a podium, and they're still on that podium. It's 3 seconds back to David Williams, 12 back to Jeremy Bootsloop in the number 8. Jeremy is on those new tyres, but he will have damage from his contact with the wall. The David Williams in the 81, he's on old tyres, the same situation as Dion Fiallo is in, but that gap is pretty stationary last time around. In fact, Dion Fiallo was about 8/10 slower, but that could have been simply because of traffic. There's a lot of factors got to play into this last 20 minutes, and if they're both on the same situation, I think it's going to be okay. Jeremy Bootsloop, I'd argue, doesn't have enough time to close the gap. It is 10 seconds, it is possible, we have seen it done. However, he's really going to have to get his head down, drive around that damage on his number 8 machine, and I'm just not sure he's got enough time to do it.
Yeah, he's really sealed his own fate there with the incident with the lap traffic into turn 3 well, around about, I would say, about 15-20 minutes ago at this point. And, you know, it's absolutely horrible to have happen, but I think we are all unanimous in agreement that it was the fault of Jeremy Bootloop coming up through turn 3 there, just a little bit too far back to be able to make the pass happen on the lap traffic. So, as a result, it has meant that Pure Racing team have been able to get out there in front, and with a 10.6 second advantage right now. Williams Esports, second place, dealing with lap traffic right now, which is not what they want to see. It's through the S's as well, so they'll have to wait and bide their time, wait for the launch off of turn 5, and they'll be able to get themselves the pass on the lap traffic done. So, the lap traffic currently affecting Williams Esports, but in a couple of moments' time, Venig has a couple of bits of lap traffic that he has to deal with as well. So it's all swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, it's how it works here and how the flow of this traffic works. The lap traffic that Lehook was going past was actually the battle for 15th place, which is quite intense at the moment between Impulse Racing Masters and Schubert Motorsports VBLN. But right now, look at the gap that Venig has and just being able to do clear laps really, he can push on and really try and get this go to the end. But yeah, Venig 11 seconds ahead of second place. He doesn't need to push. He doesn't need to take any risks right now with 17.5 minutes remaining.
Yeah, he's taking a lot of liberties with the track limits off of turn 5, which is not where I would decide to do it. But then again, I am not a pro driver with over 10k rating, so you can see how the perspective may be a little bit skewed in terms of that one. But Venig, even, well, he doesn't have quite 10k rating. He still has 7,473 though. So, still quite healthy. Well within the top 0.001% of drivers or something like that here on the iRacing service. So, certainly a competent hand behind the wheel, especially in sort of special event style races like this one could well be. Of course, it's not an official iRacing special event, but it is a one-off event here. It's just a week before the actual special event of the Petit Le Mans, where Pure Racing Team Red have previously been strong as well, although they have had a couple of moments in previous years at that particular racetrack. So it's definitely a big question mark coming into that particular race, but we've still got 16.5 minutes of this one to go. Battle for P10 out there. That's the 31 and the 15. That's Nick Koudarakis, and of course that's the BMW Works team. That is Jesse Krohn behind the wheel of that number 15 car, and well, he looks to get himself a little bit of a battle going on here down towards driver's right-hand side for Krohn. Then down the back straight they go, side by side with Hellenic Racing Red as they go even further down the hill. A big elevation change, and that is Jesse Krohn gaining the position over Hellenic Racing Red. The factory drivers have made their impact here, Jack.
Yeah, Jesse Krohn, nice and easy pass over Hellenic Racing Red in that factory BMW team, up into the top 10 after what has been a pretty slow race for them. They're up 4 positions on where they started, heading down into turn number 1 for the 80th time. And his sights are now set forward 10 seconds to Andreas Lakem ahead in the number 6 machine. Not quite sure. I think Jesse Krohn is in the same position as the driver of Jeremy Bootloop is in. Not quite got enough time to close down that gap.
Yeah, it all starts to be a matter of time when you get this late on in the race. Coming up to 15 minutes to go for your drivers out here today. Pure Racing team still leads from Williams Esports. Team 63 still holding on to a podium finish here, although they are quickly being closed in on by VRS Quantum Sim Sports number 81 on the fresher tyres. So this will be one of the battles to finish off the race here today. Team 63, they are coming up on a bit of lap traffic though, which might be an issue. Impulse Racing, Schubert Motorsports as well might get themselves involved in this one, which is not what Fialo wants to see at this stage. He's already concerned about Coanda closing in from 2 cars back there. They don't need problems further ahead of them as well, Paul.
Yeah, this is quite an intense battle here, by the way, 15th and 16th place, and Team 63 really don't need this right now, as there we go, side by side, down the back straight. Doesn't quite sound as good from me as it does from Evan, but down into the chicane there, and still holding on to that position then is the Impulse Racing Masters, and all of this is doing is holding up your third place driver who's there right behind them, waiting for the opportunity to lap them. I'm surprised he isn't flashing the lights, but here we go again, in towards turn number 1, dive down the inside, and the 129 is through finally, and gets to stay ahead as well. I thought maybe they'd try and get a cutback, but it didn't quite work out. So the 129 up ahead of the 13, and now the car 63 really does need to move on by them.
It was a very big committed move down the inside at turn 1 that finally sealed the deal between these two, and now Impulse have to be conscious of the leaders coming through in towards turn 6. Still not getting themselves hurriedly out of the way, but I think coming out of the corner here that they will make more of an effort on doing so, as Fiallo, he really wants to get through. He really wants to put more cars in between himself and the Coanda number 81 car that's quickly closing him down. But Team 63 can only really do so much when the tyre situation is as it is right now. They have been on these tyres since the start of the race. On the brakes into the chicane, able to get past one. Not the second will elude them for now. Meanwhile, in the background, you saw Coanda get past the Walking Dead GTE car as well. So, you know, it's basically who is better through the traffic here, Jack.
And this is crunch time for both of these cars. The last 10 minutes are going to be the hardest 10 minutes that these guys race. The track temperature is still about the same, 42 degrees Celsius. Those tyres are really going to starting to be reaching that cliff, and once they hit the cliff, they're going to fall off like there's no tomorrow. And all of a sudden, they're going to be in all manner of trouble. Getting through traffic is going to be that little bit harder, as we can see the gap between David Williams and Dion Fiallo back out to 1.2 seconds. That's because Fiallo has got a little bit of clean air stuck behind the car ahead of him. The driver of David Williams doesn't have that luxury. A slower car ahead is going to have to go down to the inside. His next car ahead is for position, but the gap is still over 1 second, and we're going to see Dion Fiallo get a draft down the straight this time. Hopefully he can get clear, but there's more traffic ahead for the number 63.
Yeah, more traffic, and well, there comes a point in races like this where it's seemingly a constant stream of traffic. That will be a big topic that gets brought up when the Petit Le Mans rolls around next weekend. We're seeing side-by-side Impulse Racing, Walking Dead. That's a swap for position there as well between those two. So Walking Dead through now as part of that number 12. Impulse Racing having to drop back into what was going to be P17 still, as they had a little bit of a jostle as well. Meanwhile, Schubert Motorsports Team 63, they were side-by-side briefly coming down in towards the first turn, but that's Team 63 now through on the lap traffic here. So I think both at this stage, Paul, getting through the lap traffic in both relatively equal amounts here. It's not that one driver has fell to it more than the other. I think they're just, the gaps are similar coming out of the traffic as they were going in.
And the problem that they've got, though, is the fact that they're on these older tyres of both the Team 63 and the Coanda car, that they're coming up against lap traffic that are a lot quicker than a lot of the other lap traffic that they've gone through on, but also that they're on newer tyres are the lap traffic. So you've got that combination of that lap traffic being that little bit quicker naturally because of where they are in the field, but also being on newer tyres as well. It's just going to hamper you just that little bit more when you're trying to work your way through the traffic here.
Yep, it will. So it's, you know, certainly an issue that's not really come across all that often with the some of the leading lap cars not, well, having all the tyres, but are still faster slightly than the lapped cars. So it's an interesting predicament indeed, but right now it doesn't seem to have really affected the way that these leaders negotiate the lap traffic here. Virascan Sim Sports still closing in, still eating away at that gap. We have hit the 10 minutes to go mark here at Road Atlanta for the BMW Driving Experience 120. It is Pure Racing Team Red, Max Benecke, Max Wenig, that have led this race. Well, pole position. They fell behind for the vast majority of the first stint of the race, but they've gotten themselves to the pointy end of the field once again. We might have an issue with Simsa there, Paul.
Another putting the pressure on Hellenic, racing red in towards turn number 1. We've not seen that many overtakes happen there. A little bit of a rub there. That was a shoulder barge if I've ever seen it, but through he goes then, does Barry Morrison. But I suppose the Hellenic car won't be too happy with how that happened there.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a love tap coming through the corner there that allowed Simsa just to edge their way through. By the time the exit of the corner arrived, they get themselves up into P11 here today in the dying moments of the race. And, well, if we look from the... Go on, Paul.
If you consider that a love tap, I don't want you anywhere near me if you ever sort of even go to pat me on the shoulder. That was a proper hip check, that was.
Ooh. Maybe different definitions there. As well, with as I said, with this race now, we looking to about 7 laps to go. Next time, Wenig heads his way across the line for Pure Racing Team Red. So, still a couple of laps to work with here for those drivers that are involved in battles, and one of them is the one for P3 between Team 63 and Quanda Simsports number 81. But right now, David Williams just hedging the gap in just ever further, but is it going to be enough before the end of the race? It looks like it might just put him in the position to be able to challenge coming through the final couple of laps, but now there are no laps cars between them. The gap is as it is out there on circuit, and well, with that Rebellion R-Racing Team white car currently parked on the front of this battle, they'll have to get out of the way rather quickly as well. At least Dion Fialo would want to get him out of the way rather quickly, Jack.
Yeah, because David Williams, I've been watching this over the last couple of laps, he's slowly closing. The gap is now down to half a second. Bearing in mind, last time we looked at this, it was about a second when they were dealing with traffic. They're dealing with traffic still, but it's half a second. And it looks as though Dion Fialo still stuck behind, so it's going to have to be a back straight job, and every single second that he's stuck in traffic, it's allowing David Williams to close that gap even more. And there's still a long way to go in this race when you start to think about it. Into 6 and 7 they go, line astern, 4 tenths between the two. This is going to be interesting to see how the tyres are holding up as well, because worn tyres, it can be much harder to pull a move off, especially when you're going through traffic. They're going to get a little bit of clean air for a while. However, they're going to hit a couple of cars in probably 2 or 3 laps time, and then towards the very end of the race it's going to be another 2 or 3 cars. I think that's all the traffic they're going to hit now between now and the checkered flag. However, it's still going to factor into this one as they head into turns 10A and 10B. The gap is down to 3 tenths of a second.
David Williams is closing. David Williams is looking threatening, the British driver behind the wheel of the Quanda 81 car, and Fialo, not really a great amount of speed coming out of the final corner there, allows Williams to close up all he wants coming down the pit straight here for, well, coming into the final 6 laps of this race. Up into turn 3, they decide to go. Williams overcooked that one a little bit, pushed a bit wide, coming up towards turn number 4 there, and you can just see that's lost him a little bit of time coming through this SS section here, Paul, as we have a triple B spin at turn 5.
Yeah, it was a bit of a sort of self-spin there, so not really worth looking at. But yeah, turn 5 has taken a victim, and Simsa have had an instant. They were battling with the BMW team Crowcat. They've had an instant down at the chicane, so I wonder what's happened at that one. In fact, they were attacking that BMW team heading into the chicane. Don't say there's been a little bit of contact here. There has, and I would say that Jesse was moving across in the braking zone there.
Yeah, that was a bit of a move across in the braking zone, wasn't it, from the factory driver? So that's an interesting one, down into the braking zone of turn 10A and 10B. You can see a little move there, door-to-door contact, sends the IMSA ISR car around. Well, they will be able to get back going, and they don't have all that much damage, but they have a lot of lost time as a result of that one. But back to your battle then for P3. Team 63 still trying to hold on here to a podium finish here today, with David Williams and VRS Coanda Simsports number 81 looking to recover something for that Coanda Simsports team, as their sister car was looking good to maybe challenge for the lead of the race at this point. But unfortunately for them, they had a bit of an altercation with a lapped car that has put them down into one position behind this one, into P5. But it's now all on David Williams' shoulders here, Jack, to try and do something about getting Coanda a podium finish.
And he's really closed in, coming through turn number 7 out onto the back straight as they head themselves through turn number 8, the slight left kink, the turn number 9 down the hill, the slight right kink, and head themselves up towards turn 10. The number 3 has gone around at turn number 5, but we'll stick with this for now. Defensive from Dion Fiallo, but inside will go David Williams. Down to the inside, he's going to hit the apex of the chicane, block the door or shut the door on Dion Fiallo. There's no way that the Team 63 car can come back. He got unlucky in traffic. It allowed David Williams to close the gap, and that just shows how strong the draft is around here. But watch Dion Fiallo now looking down to the inside as they head into turn number 1, really trying to put the pressure on. He's not going to let this one go easy with 4 laps remaining in the race.
Coanda up into a podium position then inside the final 4 minutes of this race. Team 63, do they have anything in the back pocket? Do they have anything to respond here coming through the final couple of laps? I don't think they do. It seems like Coanda have had the pace all day over them in that number 81 car. But never say never, because the draft is still a big thing here at Road Atlanta, and Team 63 are still very much within it as they go up towards turn number 7 then. Slightly wider line taken by Team 63. They will lose a little bit traction off the corner though. As you can see, Coanda, they're going to try to break the draft. They go right towards one side of the circuit, the other side, and back again, trying to break that slipstream back to Team 63. But the thing is, I don't think Team 63 is going to be close enough this time around into the braking zone of the chicane to be able to do anything about Coanda. All they're doing here, Paul, is just keeping themselves in contention. Yeah,
as much as you're weaving about, you are actually increasing the length of distance that you're going down that straight, so it really does actually affect you a little bit down that straight. But they do have a better exit out the final corner and then into turn number 1. So David Williams, the Englishman, is really putting the pressure on and trying to pull away here in 3rd place, but he's not able to do it for the time being. Lap traffic ahead of him, so it's not going to be all plain sailing just yet.
Not just yet, but that lap traffic gets well out of the way there. That's the Wild Animal Russia Ushanka car getting out the way, and they slot themselves in between the battle as then they back out and go onto the grass to let Team 63 by. I'm sure Team 63 will appreciate it, but it's still not really helping them in terms of getting any closer to the back of that VRS Coanda Simsports number 81 car. You can see David Williams again, the weaving down the back straight here, trying to break that slipstream. And well, David Williams, he has been gaining. He's very close to being able to break the draft here, but it hasn't quite happened just yet here, Jack. Team 63 is still in contention, but I don't think they have the legs.
And as they cross the line this time, they have 2 laps remaining in this race. As you say, Dion Fiallo and Team 63, I would agree, not quite got the legs on VRS Coanda Simsport. They maybe just used their tyres a little bit too much, and all of a sudden they've fallen off a cliff. I'm keeping an eye on the gap back to Jeremy Bootsloop, still 4.5 seconds, but it is going to be close as we've had problems. The BMW Team Crocat, that's the factory team with Jesse Crone on board, has hit issues, Connery, and it looks as though it's an incident limit breach.
Yeah, looks like they've gone over it. Well, they would have gotten the 4X with the contact down into the chicane with the Simsa car, and they've had a track limits violation into turn 3 that has put the final nail in the coffin as far as the BMW factory drivers are concerned. So they won't be seeing the checkered flag here today, unfortunately for them. So that's a big thing to have happen here inside the final couple of moments of this race. 15 seconds remaining as Pure Racing Team Red go across the start finish line. This will be the final lap of the race here for Maximilian Wernig. Challenged early on, but when it comes to the latter portions of the race, it seems like Pure Racing Team are pretty strong, and well, it was helped by the fact that the VRS Grandis Sim Sports number 8 car, their closest challenger, had contact with a lapped car coming through the middle of the race up in towards turn 3. And that allowed them to break clear. That allowed them to break the draft to all of the cars behind. They were challenged by cars actually taking double stint strategies here. They got up to the back of them. They got disposed of them so quickly. That's the class that is required here on the iRacing service to win these sorts of top split events, to win World Championship races as well, as Beneke has done as that first driver in that Pure Racing Team red car. And of course, for the Pure Racing Team, of course, their fair share of race wins in the VRS iRacing GT World Championship. But here in the BMW Driving Experience World 120, here at Road Atlanta, out the final corner they come. Maximilian Beneke, Maximilian Wernig, they take the win here at Road Atlanta for Pure Racing Team Red. They will get themselves a once-in-a-lifetime experience. They'll get themselves a course of the BMW M Racetrack GT training. And of course, they'll get to drive the beautiful BMW M4 GT4 car. A very, very well-worked race there from Pure Paul.
It certainly was, and they had to work for it. Remember, they were behind the Logitech GLTS eSports car for quite a considerable time in the first part of the race, but then once they got ahead and got the pit stops worked, that was it. They were out front and they were able to just pull out that gap. I think a little bit helped by Jeremy Bootloop's incident, but certainly they were able to just pull away, and a 12-second gap at the end is quite convincing.
Yeah, very, very convincing indeed, but still anything could have happened in this race. But Pure Racing Team Red, consistent as ever, not stepping a foot out of line. They will win here today by that 12.1 seconds over Williams Esports, looking for that late race charge that certainly didn't come to them. A little bit too far back for them to be able to challenge. VRS Grandis Sim Sports number 81, one of the cars on the double stint strategy. It actually comes home with a podium here today with Team 63, the other car on the double stint strategy, coming home in P4. VRS Grandis Sim Sports number 8, though, what could have been for Jeremy Bootloop without that incident? Could have challenged for the race lead here at the end, but fell by the wayside as Evolution Racing Team 99 will finish in P6. Hellenic Racing finished P7 with Relay Sim Racing, Simsa ISR and AAA Esports rounding out your top 10 for the BMW Driving Experience 120. Hellenic Racing Red in their 31 car will finish in P11 with Triple B Stream Endurance Gold P12 with Schubert Motorsports in 13th. Team Walking Dead GTE in P14 with Impulse Racing Masters in P15. P16 will go to Logitech GLTS Sports 43 with Ultimate Stonk Bonkers in the 17 with Rebellion Racing Team White finishing in that 19th place there, as the orders are getting a little bit mixed up here due to drivers coming down in for their splash and dashes, but the rest of the results are going to be up on screen for you now. And Paul, what an absolutely fantastic race here. Road Atlanta always plays host to some very, very interesting racing, the side-by-side battling down into the chicane, the lap traffic getting itself involved. It had it all.
It did have it all, and yeah, these drivers certainly put on a good display for us here today, and certainly was a race that was thoroughly enjoyable. I really enjoyed calling this one, and well, it makes us look forward to next week and Petit Le Mans even more.
Yep, absolutely. Petit Le Mans, one of the big races on the calendar, of course, but another big thing in the calendar of Wernig and Beneke, that is going to be their little bit of a stint behind the wheel of a BMW M4 GT4 machine. That is the prize for winning today's race, and well, will get themselves in for an interview as well. Maximilian Beneke just making himself known in the commentary booth here. We'll drag him in. Max, you are a race winner here for the BMW Driving Experience 120. How are you feeling?
Hey guys, feeling very, very good after being here yesterday already. That's even yeah, nicer today because we can actually get to drive the real BMW, so I'm looking forward to that. Challenging first stint definitely, and then managed to get a good gap, and yeah, happy that Max was able to just keep up the pace and come in first. That's yeah, amazing result for us.
Yep, absolutely. And you did mention that you'll now get to drive a BMW M4 GT4 machine at some point in the future. Of course, that date has to be confirmed, I suppose, between yourselves and BMW. But you're looking forward to that?
Absolutely. Definitely looking forward to that. We already talked about which track we could go, but I think the final decision is not made yet, but we will arrange something.
Yeah, absolutely. But talking more about this race now, you know, tell me about the start of the race, because you guys started on pole position. You made a bit of a mistake coming through turn 5 that put you behind the Logitech G Altus esports car. What was the thought process from that point forward? Because to us, it appeared to be fuel saving.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. We had the strategy ready already before the race, but obviously you try to pull up a gap in the beginning of the race just to make sure that nobody can stay in your slipstream, and if that doesn't work, you just have no chance being up front, and you want to have a good slipstream where you can save fuel. And from there on I just saved fuel until Altus finally realized that they actually had to save fuel for the race, and that's where we got P1 again. And from there on I was just waiting for the traffic ahead to play a bigger role in this race, because if you have this gap of 1 second, 1.5 seconds, then you're good to go. And if you have like a couple of qualifying laps afterwards, you can easily manage to have a bigger gap afterwards, and that's exactly what we did, and it worked out perfectly. And without that we probably would have had a closer race now, but for us it's better to have it that way.
Yeah, it certainly was. And coming to you, Mr. Vernig. You're of course the driver, you know, coming in second to Beneke here, or at least second into the car, and going for that final stint. How was your race behind the wheel, especially when, given you're in a position where, at least for the first couple of laps of the stint, you were, worried about the fact that, if Commander SimSports dealt better with the traffic or something like that, they'd be able to challenge you. But after they fell by the wayside and you were having to just nurse the car to the end, how well did you manage to deal with it, especially considering the whole lap traffic issue here?
I think I had the more comfortable part from both of us. I think it would have been a really cool race. Obviously, I think that the pace was pretty similar to Coenda, which was surprising, dealing with the fact that they have a little more experience in the car than we have, and that makes me pretty happy to see that we have a good setup, or at least for this track, so good pace on this one. Once they crashed, unfortunately, well, as you said, for me it was just a way of keeping the car on the track, dealing with the traffic in the right way and not risking anything. And Road Atlanta is definitely a challenge in this one, so maybe even the hardest track for traffic. Then like the field is also not as close as you're used to from World Championship races, so we have a couple of slower drivers, and it's always a different mindset. For example, that some people try to let you overtake on a straight, and then therefore they are lifting on the throttle, and you are not expecting that, and then it's again a close situation. So I had a couple of those, but in the end, we did the right thing. We kept it safe, brought it home. And I think the guys next week doing the Petit Le Mans will have a far more difficult time than we had to do.
Speaking of that Petit Le Mans 1, are you competing in it yourself? And, well, of course, 2, how are you guys looking for that particular race?
Like our team will definitely have a car, one car at least, or maybe multiple. I'm not sure who will be driving, so that has to be decided. Petit Le Mans, as I said, it's a roller coaster. First of all, the track very short. That means the qualifying times are also pretty tight. But on the other hand, it's a lot of fun. It's not as boring as some other endurance races because you're constantly working either the traffic or the track or the car or the tires, whatever. It also has a lot of room for strategy since the stints are pretty short. So as we have seen in this race, either you go for the fuel saving or you maybe go for that one stop extra. It's always an exciting one and definitely needs a lot of preparation. So we will see.
Yeah, a lot of teams putting in a lot of preparation for that particular race. Back to you, Beneke, just for a final couple of words. Is there anyone you want to thank? You know the whole deal.
Yeah, sure. Our sponsors, first of all, Ascher Racing, Spusu, Autohaus Wallmeyer, especially Pure Driving School. And yeah, thanks to Max for the amazing setup work. I mean, I came quite late to this race today, just half an hour before. And I had to get used to the car into qualifying mode, and but the setup worked perfectly, especially in the race, had almost no issues. So thanks to him, and then thanks obviously also to the team behind who did some work with the strategy as well. And yeah, thanks to you guys for broadcasting this. Thanks to BMW for this great opportunity. We will definitely make the most out of it. And yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks to all of you.
Well, there we go. That was Maximilian Beneke, Max Wernig, the two Maxes from Pure Racing Team doing it once again here. This time in the BMW Driving Experience 120 at Road Atlanta. Those two drivers will get themselves a little bit of a spin in the BMW M4 GT4 car as part of BMW's track racing GT training session, which is an absolutely fantastic prize indeed. Paul, it was a brilliant race there from PRT. We'll get on to Andre Borja in just a couple of moments' time. But first, Paul, it was just a well-worked race. There's not really anything else you could say about that.
That's absolutely shocked me that Max jumped into that half an hour before, got a bit of practice, and then was able to work it and to get out in front and to take the lead in that one. I wouldn't be able to do that, but then again, I haven't got the talent of these drivers, so definitely it really is an impressive feat what's happened today. A little bit of luck goes into the play as well, in terms of the VRS Sim Spot number 8 car getting involved in that instant with black traffic, so that looked in their favour a little bit, but they came out the pits 4 seconds ahead of the rivals there, so it was still a lead that they had that was not a huge lead, but comfortable. And as soon as that happened, they're just able to just slowly just pull away, not push themselves too hard, and get the victory here today.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a representative from Williams Esports that was hoping to give a little bit of a late race charge. That is Andre Borja. As Paul, you might as well take this one away.
Oh yeah, thanks for dropping that. Hey. Yes, but Williams Esports then, Andre, you came into this race here today and you qualified second place on the grid? No, 5th place on the grid. Sorry, should I say? I'm looking at your result there, but you worked your way through the field there. How did that race pull out for you? Was there any question of maybe trying to double stint the tyres, or was it always a full tyre change and full service?
No, for us it was quite clear that double stinting the tyres wouldn't work. We were struggling quite a bit with the tyres actually, with the setup. We don't have that much experience in the BMW, and yeah, so didn't have the best preparation either, because it was quite spontaneous doing this event with our own drivers. So yeah, happy with the result in the end. Messed up qualifying a little bit, could have been further up the grid, and then got a bit unlucky at the start, so lost the draft quite early and killed the tires even more, trying to catch up. So yeah, for us it was quite clear to not double stint them and then just go as fast as we could in the second stint.
And of course, yeah, you have someone like Alpha come into the car here and take over in the second stint, and he still had to make some moves, had to make some overtakes against drivers who had decided to double stint the tyres. Was it a case of you knew that the moves were always on and just being patient, or were you just thinking get past as quickly as possible to give yourselves the opportunity to go for the lead?
I think we were quite patient. PRT was just too far ahead the road, and yeah, I don't think we could have catch them in the race anymore. Pace was just too equal. We were not any quicker really, and yeah, so Arthur took some patience overtaking the cars on the old tires, and just tried to finish safely and make the fuel work, because we had to save quite some fuel in the second stint, because we didn't have any draft really in the first stint, unlike the cars ahead. So yeah.
Well, of course, Petit Le Mans is coming up for iRacing. Will your team be involved? And if so, how are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, I think we'll definitely do it. It's just a matter of how many cars we can actually field. After the World Championships are over now, it's always the question of who's available and yeah, motivated to drive. So I'm sure we will have enough drivers to field at least one car, hopefully more cars. And yeah, there's not much time left to prepare for this race. We have to figure out which is the strongest car actually for that one race. It's a bit different than testing out a car for a whole championship. So need to make sure we pick the strongest car for this track especially, and we'll see.
Absolutely. Well, before we let you go then, of course, Williams Esports, who gets it done for you?
Yeah, thanks to our sponsors, Chill Blast, Razer, thank you, Fanatec, Playseat and One Sports, and for making this possible, and yeah, obviously thanks to BMW for putting up an event like this.
Well, Andre, thank you very much for joining us, and still, congratulations, second place, that's still a good achievement.
Yep, thank you very much.
Second place there for Williams Esports. Andre Butcher, still a very, very good run at the end of the race to work themselves through on those cars that took double stints in terms of the strategy here today, and well, able to haul themselves up onto that second step of the podium. Just a final couple of words from each of us here in the commentary booth today. Is there anything you want to say, Jack, about how this race has been?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting to see. I think a lot of the pace of the teams have been shown today, ready for Petit Le Mans next week. A lot of lessons would have been learned by a lot of other teams as well. And for a few teams here today, it's all going to be about collecting the data, getting everything they need, and it's all about the preparation for next week. But congratulations to Pure Racing team, Maximilian Benecke and Maximilian Venig. Enjoy your prize, because that is going to be an absolutely brilliant experience. And for everyone else who got close, it was a brilliant race, especially that opening hour where the lead didn't go out, but the top five were covered by about 2 seconds for the whole hour. It was brilliant to watch, and unlucky for Logitech Toyota Esports, because I think they could have really taken the fight to the checkered flag with that number 43 machine. Unfortunately, their fuel calculations were just out with running out of fuel coming down the back straight on that final lap.
Yeah, absolutely heartbreaking for them. Just miscalculation, like you said, Jack. It's one of those things that does happen in motorsport. And Paul, you know, for the end of this race, it was just Pure Racing team strong until the end. And of course, a couple of the other teams and other drivers looking towards their own goals as well to finish for this race. Just another brilliant event by BMW. Of course, you commentated on the previous one when, you know, I wasn't available for that one, but you know, it's the second event that BMW have done here on the iRacing service, and once again, it's produced a fantastic race.
And it's great to see the support that BMW are giving sim racing as well. The first event that we did was, of course, before Le Mans, where the prize was to go along and get VIP experience at Le Mans, at the actual venue. They even actually had the two winners who were from Williams Esports. They actually had them competing on the sim that was in the BMW VIP area against the full-time works drivers. So you know, had a little bit of a competition there on site as well. But as I say, great opportunity for these drivers to get these these events and these special prizes being put on. I'm just wondering, when do we get our payments of a BMW driving experience? I'm not asking for the full GT4 experience, just a normal driving experience would be nice.
The thing is, I'm not sure about your situation, but my situation is I still have a provisional license. I haven't got my full driving license yet, so I don't think they'll let me. I don't know if that's the case for you, Jack. Have you got your full driving license?
I've had a full driving license for over a year now, yeah.
There we go. So, yeah, I mean, you know, if there are any opportunities that crop up, you know, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing my driving lessons and my driving test right now, because if there are opportunities like this for us in the future, then maybe that'll be a thing. But that is all we had time for here on the BMW Driving Experience 120 here from Road Atlanta. It was Pure Racing Team, the two Maxes, Wenig and Benecke, taking the race win here today. They'll get themselves a training session, a BMW M Race Track GT training session in a BMW M4 GT4 car. So very much looking forward to see how those guys do behind the wheel of a real car. But that's it from me, Connery Maddock, that Paul Smith, and of course Jack Stiles. Hugo Luis behind the cameras as ever, and our track cams brought to you by Esteban Ballo from trackcams22.com. We'll see you guys same time next week, but for the iRacing Petit Le Mans special event. Don't go away.